A lot of people today are kind of like, well, I don't want to follow this person's framework. I want to do it my own way. I'm like, that's dumb. Follow the framework. You being you is going to be your own way anyway. Who I want to become is an identity question. The person that you want to become does specific things. If that's your frame of how you look at the world, direction is more important than destination. If you keep asking yourself that, you're going to go in the right direction and you'll be happy about who you become.
Time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Luka Hocevar.
There we go. There we go, Dave.
Nailed it. Ex-pro basketball player, owner of Vigor Ground Fitness, and host of the Vigor Life podcast. You've worked with professional players across the board, Gen Pop, pretty much everybody across the board. And you've been doing this, I don't want to age you, forever, which kind of ages you, but
for a long time,
a couple decades, right?
A couple of decades. 21 years coaching, 19 years plus having a gym.
Yeah. Now you first started actually training, 14, is that right?
Yeah, my mom opened up a gym. I had to I was on a couple of shows. I had to really think about it, go back and look. But when I was 13 years old, my mom opened up a gym in Slovenia. So back there, they have physical education building. So it was at the top of the building, about 2,000 square feet. She worked at the bank half the day, did the gym the other half the day, and her friend did the mornings. And it was like a membership gym, come in and do stuff. But I think I was a scrawny kid that was, if you look at me, you're not like, hey, this guy's a basketball player. I don't walk in and you go like that, right? So like, how do I, show up and be able to compete? So I started lifting weights. My big thing for every kid was just like, be explosive, be able to touch the rim, dunk it eventually, all that stuff.
Was it basketball at that time? Because you guys are exposed to a lot of sports. Early, right?
Yeah. I would say the multi-sport thing in our country is still very, very strong.
Yeah.
And real smart. But I did as like at 9, I started going to basketball camps. Kind of started, here's what I tell people though. I didn't love it at first because I sucked.
Yeah.
Right. So nobody. It's like Cal Newport's The Passion Hypothesis, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm just gonna start doing something, love it, fall in love with it. Yeah. It was more like little kid can't do shit, it's like all of that stuff, and it's like chip on your shoulder.
But at 13 you were gravitating towards
by that time I was like every day I'm practicing basketball. I'm on a team at that time it was Olympic, which was the best team in the country, practicing every single day. And the weight room became, mom opened up the weight room. I started going there to train. And I was lucky, man, because we had like the top power lifter in the country at his weight category trained there. So he started showing me, how to bench press, how to squat, all that stuff. And then at the bottom of the building, same thing, fortunate. There was 2 guys, gymnastics. One was Elias Pigan. I don't know, hard to say the name. But he was like 5-time world champion on a straddle. Right, it was the little gym at the bottom of that building, and the same thing. They'd come up and they train and then show me stuff, bodyweight gymnastics stuff, training, and so I got this really, really good foundation of how to lift, like understanding lifting. And
is that typical in the gym culture there at that time? Because say a 13-year-old kid shows up in a gym now, I'm not too sure. The top gymnasts and the top power lifters are going to want to help them.
Good point. I think. Listen, I think that part of where I'm from, there's this like sports culture, this development culture. And I think that was part of it and still is part of it, where it's like you just show the younger generation, you kind of pass on stuff. I haven't, lived there for a long time. I go home often. I still, it's not as like that as much, but it is still there. I think, here it's kind of definitely been disappearing over time. Unfortunately.
It's geographically kind of interesting where it sits. Right, because the ocean and the mountains, so there's a lot of sport.
A lot of sport. I mean, we're a country, because I was born in '81, so that was before the war, right? Yugoslavia, and after the war, Slovenia is like 2 million people. So you think about, I live in Seattle, Greater Seattle is 3.8, and I live in a country with 2 million people. But we have medals in the Olympics, Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics. We won a European Championship in basketball not that long ago. At one point in time, we had, I think, the most or close to the most players per capita in the NBA, right? So it's a big sports country. And physical education is just, it really is a foundation, right? And So for me, I still feel fortunate. You got like, you know, 2 elite people kind of, hey kid, let me show you how to do this. This is dumb. Do it like this. But the feedback loop for me was, you know, I was able to jump higher. Now I'm on the court. I can bully people a little bit more. You know, the disadvantages I had, now I got an advantage. And that's where, you know, looking back, I fell in love with training in the gym, because it gave me confidence. It gave me like, oh man, if I work hard here, it transfers to here, and it builds my self-esteem. It builds my confidence. So
where were you growth-wise? You know, were you 6 foot then, or were you still in puberty?
No. I was still a short kid.
All right, so you're seeing these gains before puberty is really kicking in.
Really, I mean, in two, you know, it's like when you train your 13, 14, 15, like those 2 years right there, I went from like the kid that, you know, maybe I get some minutes because it's like, all right, this guy works hard, but you know, till like at 15 now, I'm like, I'm starting, like I'm one of the top scorers. You know, and I correlated that to like, hey, work ethic, the gym, sport. You know, I got very, very into, I mean, I was 16, 17. I'm reading Charlie Francis, you know, Speed Trap. And there was another, I got to tell this story because it's important. When I was 17, my coach knew this guy, Srđan Đorđević. Saying a lot of hard names right here, but he was like the top track and field coach in the country. He actually, last 6 years of her career, he trained Marilynati. Brigitte Bukovic was silver medalist in hurdles in '92 Barcelona Olympics. You know, and he went to him and said, I got this kid, he's nuts. You know, like he wants to dunk, he wants to jump higher. He like, can he train, you know, track and field? And he said, sure, have him come before school early in the morning, like 6 a.m. to train, and he can come. And he thought like, there's no way he's going to show up. I'm there 3 days a week, you know, boom, on time. And at first, like I annoyed him, but I'm training with Olympians, right? Like I'm getting taught everything. Plyometrics.
Do you realize that at the time?
I mean, I knew, yeah, because it's like Brigitte Bukovic was like, superstar in the country, you know, so I'm there, and she's like, hey, this is how you do foot fire, you know, 10% of weight on a sled for acceleration. So I was like very, very humbled, and like, I'm here shutting the hell up and just working my ass off. But again, it's, you know, you learn a lot of lessons. Like number one, you know, be stubborn, you know, don't just take no for an answer, like be willing to ask, and then, you know, bust your face off as far as when it comes to training. But this was like my training experience, and it just kind of fueled the education part of it. Now, at this point in time, if you ask me about, do you want to be a performance coach, strength coach? I'm like, no, I just want to play in NBA. That's all I care about. But it was the vehicle of me getting better at the performance side of things for basketball, right? Which later on, I think, you know, when I was like, hey, I'm ready to be done with my basketball career, there was this, you know, I had an identity crisis of who am I now, but I fell back to like training, you know, back to fitness. And that's where like my last year as a pro, you know, I was already training people. And, you know, funny story, like pro sports, you don't always, you know, you're not making LeBron money. Like my last year playing pro sports, I'm not getting paid for about 4 to 5 months because the team is like Division I, but they don't have the sponsor money they thought. So you're doing 2-a-days, not getting paid. In between, I'm training people, right? And I found so much joy training people, even though I was doing it pretty much for free, or you know, $5 a session back then, €5 per session. But I was like, man, like I really, really enjoy this, because what I was getting from training people, and they're leaving like, man, what a great session, Luka. Like it gave me something, because I was a knucklehead kid, you know. I had basketball. When I say this, like it truly saved my life. Like from age 15, especially to 18, I was involved in organized crime, and it was, you know, ball was the thing that was my anchor. Training was my anchor. It's part of the reason why I left to go to the U.S. and do basketball there, because it was like getting away from the environment that I basically set myself up in, essentially, you know. So I mean,
so how did you go about getting to the U.S. then?
So when I was 17, we went to as a team, as a Slovenian basketball team, to Eastern Invitational Basketball Academy. It's like in New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. And it was an experience. Like, hey, let's go and, you know, compete with the American teams and see where we're at, and it's going to be good for our team. And when we went there, like I had no kind of idea or desire to go to college, you know, basketball. But I loved the experience. And there was a guy that was the coach of my team. His name was Wayne Jones, and he was from Denver. And he, you know, I played really well when we were there. He said, you ever think about going to college in the States? And I was like, not really. You know, I was already playing pro ball essentially in Slovenia. You know, I was making money because I was doing dumb street stuff. And from 17 to 18, when we came back to Slovenia, a lot of stuff happened, you know, as far as things that got, let's just say, more complicated in life, you know, where my phone was tapped and all this, you know, and I knew this.
Wasn't there a war going on?
No, that was like pre-91 for us, and then 91 to 97 in the Balkans. But we were fortunate. The Slovenian war was very, very short. And Croatia, Bosnia, that's where it was really, really bad for a long time. But again, it was, you know, it made me start going like, shit, like, I don't know if doing this criminal stuff is smart, but it's, you start kind of seeing it. Well, too, like I was. Well,
when you're in it, it's different, right?
It's very different. Yeah. But my coach was actually, you know, to why I think part of the reason I became a coach. My coach was a huge influence because he knew what was going on. He was tapped into, like, you know, and he said, "Hey, Luka, look, I know what you're doing." You know, and I was like, "What do you mean?" But he knew. He's like, "Look, there's only two routes here. You know, like this route leads in a bad place. This route leads to a better place if you know, school, basketball." And he kept, you know, riffing on this, and he made me think about it. And Wayne Jones kept in touch with me the whole time. You know, he'd be emailing, "How you doing?" This, that, the other. And so, you know, I would email him back, and he's like, "Well, why don't you come up to Eastern again, but come to Denver 2 weeks before. We'll train for 2 weeks, and then we'll do back-to-back, you know, Eastern Invitational clinics," because there's like 2 weeks back-to-back. And at that point in time, I was like, I got nothing to lose. I got the money, whatever it may be. So I went, trained for 2 weeks. Now, I have zero idea, by the way, how the college system works. You know, I'm just kind of like going, right? And it's July. This is mid-July. Nobody has scholarships anymore, right? But I'm there, and I play really well. And so I have a bunch of schools, Delaware State, Quinnipiac, Western Michigan. There were D1s, like mid-tier D1s. And they're like, "Man, we like you. We'd be interested to pick you up, but you got to walk on." Right. So first year, you got to, you know, we don't have the money to do 40, 50 grand a year for a school. But there was a guy that was a coach there, and he was like, "Hey, look, man, like there's a junior college upstate New York." He's like, "Man, you're really good. Like you could start year one. They don't have a full ride, but you know, you get some of the stuff paid for. You have to go out of pocket a little bit, but it was much, much, much cheaper." But it's like, but you could literally go there like now. Right. I remember I came back August 3rd. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this. You know, it's like a off the wing sit, you know, went to the embassy. They sent me the paperwork. It took me, you know, a month or so to get everything figured out. Actually, caveat here, my first day, so I'm on a flight, think about the date, September 11th, 2001. So my plane was supposed to land 20 minutes after the towers got hit. And so we just flew in the air, you know, I was going to go back to Germany, don't have enough fuel, keep flying. And we landed in Nova Scotia, Canada. I stayed in a military camp for a week, took a bus back to the city, and then a bus up to Binghamton. So that was my first day.
You're wondering, like, where the hell am I going?
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, it was everything was so fast. You know, I mean, I knew why I made the decision because I knew it was the right choice, right? Hey, like, I can keep playing ball. I go to school. Like, this is affordable enough because it was pretty cheap. And I played there for 2 years, and I got a full ride to Virginia Intermont. And, you know, played there for 2 years, and then went back overseas, played in Ukraine my first, well, basically 6 months, and then Slovenia for a couple of teams, NBA Summer Pro League in 2004 or 5. So it was, you know, when I look back, it's like all these things were actually a great development tool, you know. And even though at a lot of points in time, I'm like, man, this sucks, you know, like this is not a great journey, but when I, you know, it really actually helped me develop as a coach and go through all those experiences because I don't know if you guys read the book, going back to the Cal Newport book, right? He talks about deliberate practice that builds career capital. So I started lifting at 13 and I was geeking out about training. I mean, all the way through college, ended up doing a minor exercise science and kinesiology because I was just so into it, not because I wanted to have a degree. My degree was, you know, you go play ball, you're like, I'll do business. Like, I'll just do business, right? And then I just did so many electives because I was so interested in training that I got a minor in it. But really, you know, I looked at it, by the time I started coaching, I had like 10 years of deliberate practice. And, you know, from my own training, my last year of pro balls, funny story, coach goes, you know, I was a 206-pound guy that's dunking, I can sprint. I mean, like, I don't look like I can do those things, but I can do those things. And He's like, where do you train? I said, I do all my training programs. He's like, really? He's like, yeah, like I love this shit. So they pay me very little. And they're like, could you design programs for the team? So I was doing program design for the pro sports, the pro basketball team as a side hustle because I just loved it, right? But all because the career capital allowed me to do that. So it's an important story that I tell coaches because, this idea that just off of a whim, you do something and, you're in love with it, but it's like, do you have the skills? Did you do the deliberate practice to give you the skills to do this thing? Like, just like reps on a bench or reps on a squat or whatever, you're dribbling with your left hand in basketball. Like you're not going to good at it. You're going to, and I actually talk about your analogy a lot, right? Shit, suck, good, great. Yeah. Right? It's like, you're going to be at shit and you're going to go to suck and you got to keep practicing. You get to that point. And the thing about coaching is that like, and this was me too, like I would study all the technical aspects of it. But once you start training people, you understand like, well, shit, how do I get people to do the thing? That, it's like X's and O's, person does the thing. There's a bridge in between, and that's all the other stuff, right? Yeah. You got like communication and problem solving and active listening and behavior psychology. I mean, all this stuff that it took me probably, I don't know, probably 6-7 years in the industry to where I was like, there's something missing, right? Like because when you train a wide population of people, you start understanding like the technical stuff is not enough. You need more skills than that. But I said that to say it, right? Like I keep going back to deliberate practice and career capital. Have you built it? For anybody that's in the industry that's kind of coming up, just always thinking about the amount of deliberate reps that you put in to develop this skill that you want to, make money from, that's impactful in your life, right?
At what point did the strength and conditioning become more important than the basketball?
I think it was my last year I had to come to terms with, I dedicated, like I was one of those guys that, they'd be like, who's the hardest worker on a team? I got psycho, So that was definitely me. But I think I got close to juicing out my potential. Maybe, as far as basketball goes, I made it way further than anybody ever thought possible, right? To legitimate pro teams, NBA Summer Pro League, I went to tryouts, like 520 players. There's 2 free agent teams, which means 24 spots, 520 guys, right? And I made a team. Played the whole summer league. Got a good agent. I was like, maybe this is the break. Got on an okay team, did okay, but I never. The realization for me was that I never wanted to just be good at something. Like I want to be the best at something. I wrestle with that. So my last year playing, during the season, I'm like, the whole season I'm wrestling with this. Do I keep going? I get an offer from Division II Portugal. Okay, do I now go to Portugal and play a year? And then, I just didn't want that for myself. I saw people before me that I knew, that were essentially peers in basketball. Like, oh man, I don't know if I want that life. He's in Germany, then he's in Poland, then he's, and doing okay. I was like, I don't want to be that guy. And strength and conditioning was there. I was in love with it. I was like making nothing, but every time I would train with people, every time I train people, I'd light up. So that gave me a sign, like, man, like, the cliche shit, like, what would you do, if you never had to make a dollar in your life, and I was like, man, every time, like, I'll do a morning practice with the team, coach people for 5 hours, right? Get my own training sessions in, come back to evening practice, and that in between, that's a long ass day if you're doing 2-a-day practices, but I'd always look forward to coaching people. So to me, thankfully, I was aware enough to be like, this is a sign, right? Like what it gives me is just as much, if not more than what I'm giving it, right? And
no, the first people that you were coaching, were they players?
Yeah. So my brother, it's funny, we started doing kettlebell training shit. Like, Pavel Tsitsoni was like my mentor. We did the first RKC in Denmark in 2004. I might be off a year or two or whatnot, but like, my brother used to be a soccer player. Same thing, college pros. And he had 3 guys that he was training. And he was like, man, I can't train him anymore. But like, I know you love this stuff. You want to take him over. So I started training, same thing, like, €5 per session type of thing, pretty much free. And after 2 sessions, those guys go to my brother, go like, hey, like your brother's got the thing. Like, I don't know. Like, he just He's good at pushing you, talking shit, he knows his stuff. And so that feedback loop was helpful too, because it's like I started practicing on them. I had already at that point in time wrote programs for the team. And, the weight room was like at home for me, right? So when we were doing strength and conditioning sessions with the pro team, I'm coaching guys up, right? I'm doing stuff.
Are you looking to boost recovery, enhance your sex drive, and improve performance in the gym? Do you think your hormones are out of whack and you're tired of getting the runaround from your doctor? Things like your hormones are just fine, stop lifting heavy weights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I know what that feels like, as I've been down that road most of my life. This is why we've partnered with Merrick Health. Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform that specializes in hormone optimization and preventative medicine, ensuring a better quality of life. Merrick Health offers a table talk panel tailored for our listeners, featuring comprehensive tests like total and free testosterone, sensitive estradiol, and advanced markers like lipoprotein A and IGF-1. These comprehensive panels of up to 84 carefully selected biomarkers allow you to identify areas of enhancement and maximize your physical, cognitive, and sexual performance. It's much different than the panels you may get from your doctor. Choose between self-service options where you can select lab panels based upon decades of experience, or opt for guided optimization with your own health coach. Start with a detailed breakdown of your labs and receive personalized treatment options, both over the counter and prescription. Visit merrickhealth.com/tabletalk and use the code TABLETALK to get 10% off your first order. Merrick Health isn't just about better health, it's about empowering you to take control of your well-being.
But that was kind of like an official, like I'm training people.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, your identity is no longer, so your identity is a basketball player, yes, right?
Correct.
And so all of a sudden you've realized you're not going to be that anymore, right?
Yes.
Training's cool, coaching's cool, but now you got to go in and train basketball players.
Yeah.
Right. No. So while you're going through this identity shift, you're face first with what you wanted to aspire to actually work with. How did you wrestle with that?
It took a while because well, another thing too is like, I came out of college, go play in Ukraine for this team called Himik, and I'm making money. They put you up an apartment that's free, food's free. You get bonuses for every win, whatnot, right? Like I'm like, hell, feeling great. Like I'm the guy, right? And then now all of a sudden it's like year 3, and haven't been paid by the team. I do 2-a-days. I'm getting paid almost no money to train. So it's like, yeah, I'm loving this aspect of it, but I'm also having a massive insecurity because It's like, who am I now? I thought I was the guy. Now I'm not. So, and definitely an identity crisis, right? And then when I moved, we started the gym in Slovenia, again, 19 plus years ago. It wasn't like when we started the gym, now I'm like raking in money. Like I mean, this is literally the first coaching gym in a country, right? So we're kind of building it up. It's a side hustle. We're kind of reinvesting. I'm, taking a little bit into the pocket. And then because I got married from my wife, who's not my ex-wife, was from Renton. That's why I ended up moving, right? I go to Seattle and I start from scratch, LA Fitness, and this is back in the day where $7.50 for a 30-minute session, working. I mean, I was coaching.
Did you have to do sales with that too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's like, it was good because I didn't want to, but it taught me.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And, but I mean, I was doing 50, 60 hours of coaching a week, 100 hours of work a week, right? And from there, the thing is, when I look back at it, it was actually a great kind of progression, because I had to learn all these things that later would make me good at the business, right? And I went LA Fitness, Vision Quest, so big box gyms, one-on-one, from one-on-one to semi-private, to opening up boot camps, doing group training. I mean, just going back to that, just insane amounts of reps, and again, where did I study? Because the thing is, when I was in Slovenia, there was nobody in the country that I could look at and go like, oh, look at that trainer, he's raking in the cash and they're known, there's high status. Didn't exist. You were either a strength coach that made okay money, or you were a side hustle trainer, right? So I had to look to the US, and I'm reading elitefts, T-Nation. I mean, all the stuff back then. I mean, I flew out to Birmingham, England, to Eric Cressy and Nick Grantham event. I mean, I was flying around, like learning and studying this stuff, buying back then DVDs, because there was, you know, you didn't have digital stuff. You just read articles, you buy the books, you know, everything that you could. And so working on this stuff, but I mean, reps.
Well, right? The tricky part there is while you're working on all that stuff, which is the fun, attractive, interesting stuff to do deep dives in, I'm going to assume that most of your clients were just Gen Pop.
Yeah.
You know, so you have all this great knowledge, but then when you go to apply it, none of it really matters.
See, this is a great point, man. This is a great point. So because I wanted to, you know, of course, as an athlete, I'm like, I'm going to train athletes. That's gonna be my thing, right? And then you start. So when I started, not even just obviously the big box gyms, I did have some athletes, but we're talking about like 5% of people, maybe 10, right? And so in your mind at the beginning, you're like, man, like this is not, you know, what I want to do. But throughout the process, you know, I did get like these huge dopamine hits when people get results. And that's what taught me, like, man, like, you know, Susie's deadlift is up, she's dropped weight, she feels better. I feel good about that. And I started being like, man, like I enjoy training people when they get better. So I don't care what it is. And that part took off way more, right? And I still to this day, you know, show me a person that's fully 100% sports performance in their facility that has been around for a long time is very, very few, right? If any.
Well, another skill that you're acquiring during that time period now you can look back and know it. You're learning how to communicate with all different types of people who don't put fitness as a top priority, where that pays dividends down the line.
Correct. Because even when I trained myself or the people I started training, all former athletes, different type of mindset, right? And if you believe that, again, you got a 57-year-old with a replaced hip, has never done fitness. You got Susie who's afraid of weights. You got, that they're going to be the same, right? They're not going to pick things up the same. The communication is going to be different. There's a huge threat to the system if you can't talk to them the same way. And by the way, you learn that, I always used to be like, these people aren't committed, because you're like, well, these people are putting in the work and getting results, but you guys are uncommitted.
Well, if you want to eat, you kind of have to learn it.
Yeah.
Because they're going to leave.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're already hanging by a thread because they miss a lot of appointments, and so it's the only way to be able to keep that reoccurring business is to either, and a lot do, just quit and do something else, assume everybody should work as hard as the athletes do, or figure out how to communicate. And if all they can do is show up once a week, that's a start. Yeah,
hey, listen, I'm high-fiving you all day long because if you come for once a week for a year, you're gonna have huge results. But people, what I realized is that working with Gen Pop and doing an incredible amount of like reps and hours with those people allowed me to be a significantly better coach for the pros. When the time came where I got extremely kind of elite, high-paid clients, I realized that like if I didn't have that communication skill set, active listening skill set, being able to build trust and buy-in from other folks, I would not be I probably wouldn't have kept a lot of the pro athletes that I have, right? Because they're human beings, right? So you kind of you start understanding the skill sets you need, period, to coach people. And because everybody is like, no, if you just give me the pro athletes to work with, I'm like, man, I don't know if you'll have the skills right now to be able to do that, right? Like working with, first you got to be a great generalist before you become a great specialist, because you get such a larger pool of people to work with to build your toolbox, right? Your toolbox is narrow if you just work with a specific kind of audience.
Well, if you would you agree with this statement that if you break down the motor abilities and qualities that somebody needs to be able to have better performance or fitness, sleep, nutrition, all those other things, a lot of the pros are no different with the sleep habits than the Gen Pop, right? So if we you see what I'm saying? If we break down these different divisions, they excel in the one, the athletic performance, they practice, they get all that. But when it comes to the other things, this is kind of reiterated what you're saying with the Gen Pop is you're working the same habits with the Gen Pop or you are with them, and their maturity level is the same on those habits as what the Gen Pop is.
I'll tell you a story because this is a great example, right? I would say a running back that probably everybody knows that, same thing, training locked in, and we have a conversation, we talk about nutrition. And it's like, if you think on a scale of 1 to 10, like 10, you own nutrition, right? He's probably a 3, maybe a 2. Okay, when we have the conversation, like, I eat 2 meals a day, sleep, I play video games till 2 a.m., right? And my conversation with him was like, look, man, like, this is dialed in, but for you to be able to take it to the next level and not be, injury issues, like, you have to get these 2 compartments of essentially performance dialed up. There's no way around it. Or, you can make tens of millions of dollars more, or you could be done next year because you get a big injury, right? So you zoom out and you go like, well, that person is not elite in nutrition or elite in lifestyle and sleep. They're elite in talent, performance skills, and stat in their sport. But it's the same thing. Like, you work with somebody else that actually, might have their sleep more locked in, but their training isn't great, their food isn't great. Like, it's, I kind of look at the wheel, right? And it's training, nutrition, mindset, recovery. That's the kind of simple way to explain it to people, right? And we look into the different pockets and go, hey, like, what do you need to work on? I get a lot of A-type people that train 7 days a week, some 2-a-days. Luka, like, they told me you're great at what you do. Change my training up. Where do I need to do more? You got to do less. Right?
Yeah.
And then it takes 2 months for them to not stop freaking out. Then they do less, then they get better results, right? Because their recovery is horrible, right? And so the more people you work with, you kind of start realizing that. You go like, well, this person needs to train harder because they don't know what intensity is, right? But this person needs to actually tune it down because all they know is all out, right? But I don't really think that you can learn that without just having a large pool of people that you work with, right? Personalities, again, lifestyles, goals, training history, injury history. I mean, you can't, I don't give a shit what anybody says. You can't read an article and go like, I read this article, I got it, and that's why, like, if at any point in time today, if we want to talk about this, right, I'll die on this hill. Like, you can't be, good at online coaching if you haven't coached a lot of people. It's just, I don't care what anybody says. It's not happening, right?
Well, the real world comes into play, right? Because you can have this great annual plan that's all blocked out or whatever you want, but good luck implementing it.
Hell yeah.
Now, if you have individuals that are committed to a certain sport or whatever it is, and it's just one-on-one and it's just that person, maybe, but you start trying to implement that around life, things blow up.
Oh, significantly.
Really fast.
I would say even for athletes, just for the person that has a job, kids, other life stuff going on, it's just a much more difficult thing. And I was the guy that was like, hey, here's our 16-week plan. Yeah. It's like by week 2, the shit's gone, right? Like, and so you start going, okay, we're going to do more like 3 to 4 and then to keep adjusting. And even if you look at kind of what's happened in the sports performance field, you have, like, my brother is kind of like the top guy in the country for soccer players, right, in Slovenia. I mean, everything is day to day. It's heuristics. Like, they come in, they do tests. It's like, here's what we're going to do today. And I think that, it's like that with Gym Pop. It's like that with, what am I supposed to do if I have a hard leg day session playing with a client and, they had a project, they got a new kid, we're supposed to work up to, I don't know, like a heavy 3. I mean, it's out the window, right? We're going to adjust and do it differently. And then everything else is going to adjust. And so learning that, and because at the beginning I was like, well, this is what it is today on a program, it's like this person's halfway dead, but we're still kind of trying to do the thing. You quickly learn it's not going to fly, right? Because that person is going to be like, man, I don't know if this coaching is for me. It's just too hard. So the goal is to keep them coming back for as long as possible, right? It's not to do this optimal, perfectly planned out session. It's more important. If they did an okay training session on paper, but they did it consistently, you're winning, right? And I think that everybody has to come to grips with that as a coach, because if you're somebody that's obsessive like me about studying training, your knowledge is like high, right? It's like the curse of knowledge, right? And then, like you said, earlier, and said, man, like, how much of that are you using? I might be using 5%, 10% of my training knowledge with Gym Pop clients, but guess what? I got to use 80, 90% of my communication skills, being able to talk to people, being able to be a good, good at asking questions and listening and reading between the lines and, lifestyle stuff. Where the pro athlete, hey, I might have to now use 30, 40, 50% of my knowledge, right? And maybe communication skills just as much or less, but I'm just turning the dials.
Well, I think you still need the knowledge, because kind of, if I had to, like, put a big web over what we're talking about, a lot of people look at periodization as a backwards approach. Here's the objective. Let's work back from that based upon how long it's going to be able to take to hit that objective. And you have to be able to know that, because that's where the easiest way to learn the fundamentals and the principles of any philosophy, or the bad word, but any style of periodization.
Yeah.
Going to a today forward approach, right? The today forward approach, you still kind of know where you're going, right? But the path is going to change based upon what's happening on that day. I don't know if you can do that today forward approach if you don't understand what the grand scheme is going to look like in the first place.
Right. You got to understand it, and then you can kind of follow the directions more important than destination.
Yeah.
Right. But no, I agree, because I think there's, and you let me know what you think on this side of things, right? Like if you look at the industry today, this is what I see, and I work with a lot of, we have a business that helps gym owners build businesses, and I have an education business for coaches, and I see kind of like these two pendulums that swing, right? Like one is the extremely educated coach, knows their stuff like inside and out, believes that's the holy grail, and so hasn't focused on other aspects. Communication, problem solving, behavior psychology, things of that nature. Like even I think speaking is important, because you're always speaking to people, right? That's one side. The other side is like likable, great energy, good at talking to people, extreme lack of knowledge on the actual, I would say principles of program design, movement, kinesiology, biomechanics, anatomy. Like, they think the soleus attaches here, right? It's like, and I think, the answer is not somewhere in the middle, but it's like the art and science of it, right? Like it kind of gels together. And I'm a big proponent of being a huge professional in this industry, right? I want the standards to be here, because I've seen people come in and go like, oh, you're a personal trainer, kind of like.
Well, yeah, you've been around long enough to where you were a servant.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think it's both. Like, look, just like if you're a doctor, you got to study this and this and this and this and this, right? To me, if you're a coach and you want to be an elite coach, you have to learn all these different aspects of it. And we do wear a bunch of different hats, but if you want to be up here, that's the standard, and then commit to those things and learn those things. And I guarantee you, if you do it, you'll be in the top 5%, and not just like amount of people you impact, status, if that's a thing that you want, but also like the money you make. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to be in the top, 1% to 5% and make the bottom 20% money. I'll tell you that straight off the bat, right? And by the way, like part of that is, being good at sales. Part of that is being, good at self-management and how you manage your time and how you operate, right? Because I think there's coaching and then there's the business of coaching.
Well, to be around for a long period of time, because we've seen the people that don't really have the coaching knowledge, but they have the branding and the marketing down packed, right? They're not around long.
Yes.
The hope, if I'm looking at that and advising somebody that wants to do that, the hope is that you hit it big, and you make enough that you don't have to worry about coaching anymore, which is rare.
That's lotto. That's like roll the dice.
Yeah, that's like 0.001%. Yeah. And now on the other end, if the person that knows all about training doesn't learn the communication, they're not going to be around either. But if you know both, they're going to financially probably fluctuate, more in the middle, but they're going to be doing it for
a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah. And I would say, even for if I look at my own career, part of what you're saying too, I think, is like it's learning over earning, right? Because if my main focus is I just want to make money, I mean, first of all, there's a lot of industries you could make money faster than you can. Right. So you probably wouldn't pick that if you want to optimize it for that, right? It's like Charlie Munger said, show me your, incentives and I'll show you your outcomes. It's like, well, shit. Like if your outcome, your incentive is just like, I just want to make money, go to, I don't know, sell stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I do think, the learning over earning part of it is, continuously going up, and your average will continue to rise. And then if you stay in for a long time, and if you're smart with money, like you can make a good career for yourself. I ended up, the gym that we have, basically the building we have the gym in now is like, I bought the building 8 years ago, but I had a plan, and it wasn't like this 1 year I just hit it big and came falling through the sky, right? It was like, hey, put away 20% every dollar you make for, kind of richest man in Babylon stuff, right? Like, okay, cool, invest some stuff and just let it compound. Basic things done exceptionally well. And then people were like, oh, who funded this? You know, who gave what? It's like, no, I just worked really, really, really hard for a long time, you know, consistently doing a little bit more, and then putting that into a building that now, you know, obviously that's been a successful and smart investment. But I think that you have to look at the long game. And I know like all these things probably have been said before, but show me guys that have been around for, you know, 20 plus years, you know, and you know them all, like from Alan Cosgrove, who's a close friend, to the Cressies, to the Mike Robertsons, I mean, we go on and Don Saldinos, and they'll tell you the same things. So to me, it's like, well, first of all, I don't like listening necessarily to people that's like, it's a 2 to 3 year pocket. Tell me when it's, you know, 5, 10 plus, because now I know you've been around longer enough, and these principles that you're saying are probably going to stick more true than somebody that's like in this, you know, 2 to 3 year pocket window, right? And so I think that's such an important part. Is like play the long game. You know, the Simon Sinek calls it like the infinite game. Like, what's this thing that you can't achieve? You know, even when you die, you're not going to have achieved it, but it's something that drives you, and that's my thing. Like I'm a coach and I'm a gym guy. People are like, what are you going to do next? What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You never go to an accountant and you go like, oh man, you're 55, dude. It's probably too old to do this, right? Like it's such a weird question, but I think it's something that, you know, is part of that like standards in the industry that I think we need to continue to improve on, right? Because it's almost like, how long are you going to be doing this for? I'm like, what's your career? How long have you been doing this for? Like for forever. I'm not saying that you shouldn't leave, and maybe there's not a career change that you want to do, but I love this shit. Like I just keep getting better. And the difference between basketball and this is that basketball, even if I played until I was 35 to 40, right? Which would be extremely long in that sport. I mean, you start going down. I don't care. Your performance goes down. You know, you just can't do the things you used to do. But in coaching, right? And or like in business, the business of coaching, tell me, when do you stop getting worse? Like, I mean, when you stop learning, when you stop, like I can keep getting better until the day I die. And that was exciting to me, right? Because it's like, I feel dumber than I did, you know, like it's not like you talk to me and I'm like, oh, I know all this shit. I'm like, you know, I'm reading books, I'm studying stuff, I'm at events. We got, you know, 10 seminar certifications per year at Vigor, at more than any gym in the country, because I'm always bringing in folks to be like, what's new? What's, you know, this person I really respect, I want to learn more from them. So that, like, it's an infinite game, and that's exciting to me, right? Because it's like, it's not just about the money, it's actually, how do I get better? How do we impact more people? And I know it sounds cliche, but I share this because that's been my journey, and the people that I've coached that have had really long careers, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I know this is where the podcast stops and the ad starts, and most of you guys just want to skip ahead. But hang on, because this one actually matters to me. You all know who John Meadows was. John and I were very close friends. So I'm proud to partner with Granite, which was his company. The principles and values that he had as a person, he instilled into the company. The Meadows whey protein, it's just simply whey. The way that I use that is right after training, because I want it to digest faster. I want it to get into my system faster. The other product is creatine, which is like a no-brainer at this point. Everybody should use creatine. Even if they don't train, everybody should be using creatine just for the neural benefits associated with that. Right now, you can get 10% off with code TABLETALK at granitenutrition.com. If you've ever respected John, this is how we keep his legacy alive.
You know, they don't go like, well, I know all this stuff now. What's, you know, it's like, you don't. And industry's changing. And if you know, the last 4 or 5 years since COVID, holy shit, like, how different is it? You know, hiring, you know, the standards of what people want, how I would say clients respond, like the digital era, online stuff, you know, people will say, Luka, should I be doing Instagram and doing content? You didn't, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, yeah, that was a question, but not like now. I mean, that sped it up, and now everybody believes they got to be on social, that's the key to growth in brick and mortar, which is not. I think it's important. You know, I do a lot of media, and it's funny because people are like, well, but you got a huge YouTube channel and all these different things. I'm like, yeah, but like, let me tell you the story of how that happened. You know, if you want to grow in person, like your YouTube and Instagram is not going to grow that. Long term, maybe. Long term. Short term, there's a lot of other things you want to do, you know, before you kind of dive into that stuff, right?
As someone who transitioned from being an athlete first and foremost into coaching, like there's a lot there's a lot of mirroring going on there with what happened to you as an athlete in terms of having to pay forward. And, you said that, you weren't naturally a first draft pick all the time, but you had to work hard in the gym and work outside of that. And then you had this delayed gratification with your athlete for your career. How much do you feel that shaped your opinion on then coaching? Because they're very similar.
Man,
like how you talk about coaching is very similar to what you seem to have experienced as an athlete. And I wonder if you had been one of those guys who just got it like that, the guys who are just freaks from day one, how different your approach to coaching and stuff now might be different based on that.
That's a great question. And you say, how would it be? I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'll tell you what, from coaching people that got it, I can tell you right now, it's more, that's why I think the power of coach is so important. Because I got some kids that, we're talking about top 3 in the state in their sport, right? And these are some of the things that I have to constantly put the seed in. And I'm like, hey, look, at the next level, there's a lot of you. Right now you're dominating, but it's like, but here's your work ethic is, 5 out of 10. You think it's a 9, I think, Cressy told me that great story when he went to Southside back in the day. He was like, man, I believe my intensity was, 8, 9 all the time or even more. And then I got there and it was like, oh shit, like I'm more like a 5 or 6. And that's happened to me, in basketball. You go to the next level and you're like, whoa, everything's faster, everybody's stronger, and you have to adapt. So part of that is like, if it's given to you, right, it's so much more difficult because now you believe that everywhere you go, you're just gonna show up and crush everybody. And that's not how it goes. Every level that you go up, there's more people, just as good, as talented as you. So the differentiator becomes mindset and work ethic and consistency and all the, the smaller things, right? So when I would go through challenging times, I'd say, fuck, like what? Sometimes you do the whole why me thing, and then you get out of that space and you work your ass off more. But I look back now and I'm like, every one of those things was so beneficial, right? Because I took, sport gave me so much exactly because of what you said. Work ethic, resilience, like overcoming adversity, being, team captain. So you have to be good at communication and leadership. You lose a bunch. If you played long enough, you're going to have very horrible, challenging, hard season. You're going to have a lot of butting heads. And all of that, I took it to coaching and I took it to business. Sure. Right. And so I think that's an extremely important thing. And, it's why when I do believe in coaching can alter lives. And the younger you start people, the more influence you got. But even I've been doing this for 21 years, man. Like I still don't get a time where a client comes up and goes like, hey, I've got 0 back pain. I'm down 45 pounds. Went in and got my blood work. Doctor said like I was pre-diabetic, but now I'm not. And it's like they're tearing up, I'm tearing up. Like it's not like, oh yeah, I've heard that hundreds, thousands of times. Like it never gets old. For me, it never gets old. So that feedback loop, it's like the fuel to the fire.
Well, I watched your recent webinar and I've got a bunch of notes here from that, which I think would be really beneficial for people. But one statement, which I'm probably going to paraphrase and fuck up, I'm sorry, was that you're in the life-changing business, not the results business. And I thought that was a really cool statement to make. That helps frame a lot of those problems you spoke of. I say problems where people are maybe working with athletes or high performing people on this pedestal up here and maybe Gen Pop down here. But if we're talking life-changing, then that really evens the playing field out. Because sure, working with that pro athlete might help them get a better contract or stay healthy for longer. Sure, that is life-changing. But also, this lady over here getting her pain-free so she can pick up her kid or play with her kid, that's also life-changing. So do you find that bringing that mindset towards the coaches that you work with helps get rid of that perception that working with this population over here is better than this one?
Yeah, and my ego would probably say that, like, if they go with me, I'll be able to get this guy instead of a $5 million contract, it'll be a $10 million contract. I don't know if that's true. I really believe in my abilities as a coach for high level athletes, and I have a track record. But here's the thing: I don't know if they work with somebody else if it would be the same thing, because they're super talented. It's like, and they would just make shit happen. Again, now with a general pop client, I think you have much more influence if they have the right coach, and it is a lot of times more fulfilling. Really, and you think about stuff like that. I mean, the amount of the stories that I could tell you from, coaching people and what they send you a letter and you're like, holy shit, I thought I was helping them, just get more confidence back and lose 30, 40 pounds. And it's so much deeper than that. I mean, it is life-changing. Now, here's the other thing I think is very important for a coach. I can't even remember the example of what company this was, but it was a call center, right? And the call center wasn't doing great on KPIs and stats. And the person that was running the call center started they were raising money for scholarships for kids. That's what it was. They're calling. So they brought in like 2 or 3 kids that came in and told their story about how the scholarship money helped them. And it was life-changing. Everybody's crying. What happened to the performance after that? I mean, it skyrocketed because the person was like, holy shit, I'm not just dialing the phone. Like I'm basically affecting that kid, kids like that. So coaching, I think what's really important is if you can actually unravel what you do for people, you'll be more fired up to do it.
Sure.
Right? Because it's such a deeper, more impactful thing. And that's why I think it's important, people will say, get success stories, get testimonials for your business. Good. I think it's important, by the way. But imagine getting success stories and testimonials, like the deep reasons of why this changed your life, and then sharing it with your team, sharing it with the people that are coaching, because you'll see the same thing. It's like, man, I'm going to work, I'm not just training people, I'm changing people's lives. Like I have proof. Look at it. Thousands of people that came through Vigor. We've, between the Slovenian one and the US one, we're at like 13,000 people we've trained. It's a lot of people. And by the way, I can tell you folks right now, then their husband starts training, their kids start training. It's like this ripple effect. So I think it is, again, I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most meaningful industries on the planet. And sometimes it's just a perspective shift of how you approach it. Just like, I give the call center example because it's so different, because you're like, what's more, for somebody going like, I'm picking up the phone and calling people. It's like, oh, holy shit, there's no purpose there, right? But even in that business, when you showed people what they're actually working for and how they're changing lives, it completely catapulted the results.
So
right?
Do you find then when you're working with these coaches, and I'm sure you come across some that are maybe not too motivated to change, or think, why would I put the investment in learning all these communication skills or whatever it might be, shifting their perspective to say, look, you're not just a personal trainer. You're not just a PT. You don't just exist for that 1 hour in the gym every week. These are the changes you actually make to people in the gym. And you mentioned your athletic career. Some of the biggest takeaways you got from your athletic career have nothing to do with physicality.
Yeah.
Right. It's resiliency, overcoming challenges. And as a PT, you were part of that journey for someone else. How much do you find that kind of mindset shift between almost kind of elevating what their job role is for that person changes their enthusiasm for their career?
It's tenfold, right? Because if you get, and a lot of people do get into the industry because it's like, I like working out, right? And because I like working out, I'm going to get into this. And a lot of times too, it changed my life. But I think that's where it becomes powerful, right? For somebody to be introspective and go like, what did it do for you? Because it's beyond, I think that, a lot of life lessons are learned in the gym. Think about it. It's like overcoming resistance, pushing through a thing. Again, failing, coming back, doing it again. Like standard, having good form. That's a standard. How do you show up? Details matter. Like, and that's one of the things too, I'm a big fan of, and I talked about it on a webinar, right? Like when you do a group training session, a lot of people are like, all right, crank the music, whoa, let's go. Versus like, is it a masterpiece? I always go back to that movie, The Greatest Showman, with Hugh Jackman, which I love. I watch this shit every year. It's phenomenal, right? But I'm like, I'm putting on a show. I'm putting on a performance. And I got a lot of, I would say, one of my closest friends, Martin Rooney, who's a legend in the industry. We traveled a lot, spoke together, Australia, Croatia, like everywhere. But I was like around him so much on like how he presents, right? And how he'd always be like, Luka, we're putting on a show. Right. And it's like I would go and study, presenting and how you basically have presence in front of an audience, because now I'm like every group session, I'm putting on a show. Like, hey, Broadway, they do that shit every night, 5-6 days a week, and they fill the stands. Right. It's like, how do you do that? Because if you just look at like, I'm just doing a group training workout, whatever, man, I'm making my XYZ bucks per session. But if you look at it as a craft and you put on a show and people leave and go like, man, that was way more than a workout. This guy was like half Tony Robbins, half performance coach, half therapist. What the, like, it's like they tell their friends, right? I say that magic question is always like, how was it? Right? You go to a restaurant, like, hey, Dave, how was that steakhouse you went to? If you're like, that's all right. Yeah. Nobody's fucking going there. But if you're like, man, dude, they greeted me. They already knew my name. They knew what I liked. This, that, like you're going to tell everybody what happened. And then that's the referral side of the business, the word of mouth, that I think is slowly, I'm not saying it's going away, but the people that do it right, that's always high. Yeah. Right. Cause you go back to the craft and you do such a great job. And, to go back to this, like with my team and what I coach, I always try to give them that perspective. It's like, if you just think like, man, I'm just a trainer doing it. And it's like, no. Like, you're so much more than that. And then you have to tell stories of how you're changing people's lives. And then you have to show them like how it looks like to be, an elevated coach, and what are the skill sets that they need for that.
Sure.
I want to double down on this one aspect real quick, because I was having a conversation the other day with somebody about, the health and fitness of basically just everybody in the U.S., how it compares to other countries, and made the observation that, well, this is interesting because we have more trainers and a larger fitness industry than anywhere else in the world. Yeah. And everybody in the industry will say, big pharma, big food, they're all pointing fingers at all these different things, but they're not pointing fingers back at themselves. Because if we have the largest fitness industry in the world and the worst health crisis, then we suck. Yeah. Is that industry, we suck, right? And why is that? Then everybody will start nitpicking all that. And I think it very simply comes down to the impact you can have on the client. Yeah. Because, and I was completely wrong on the number I threw out when I was having this conversation. I said like 10 million. There's probably not 10 million trainers, but say I don't know how many trainers.
I actually kind of know the number.
How many you think it is?
It's about 450,000. Like, I'm probably off maybe 50.
So 500,000, right? Yeah. So 500,000, if each one of those 500,000 just have one client, that's 1 million. And that's just assuming that they can have one client that they have success with. And that compounds, as you earlier said, that goes to other family members. But they need to understand the connection that they have with that client is important for solving this health crisis, because it's the only thing that we as coaches and trainers can do. Yes. Right? We're not going to change all these other fucking pesticides or whatever we want to blame the shit on, but we can change the impact on the health of that person that you're advising or helping. And everybody knows this for a fact, because they've all had clients that have success stories that have nothing to deal with all those other things. Yeah. But I don't think, as you're saying, I don't think they get the difference that they can make.
Well, because it's massive.
Yeah. But they see it as micro. Yeah. Right. But when you compound it with 450,000 trainers, and that's not counting coaches either. Yeah. So now you throw coaches in there, we might be close to 1 million. So 1 million that can help 5 people, what's that become? 5 million. Yeah. And then one person from each one of those families helps one person. 10 million. You see, this exponentially increases.
And it is from the inside out, like what you're saying. Like, if I'm sitting there and going like, hoping that this change and that change economically happens, and politically this person I'm always pointing outwards and giving power and responsibility to somebody else, right? I get it. Like, I can't make decisions and changes that are going to essentially be like, I'm going to make this decision that's going to influence 100 million people. But, between my gym, where you got a couple hundred clients there, Slovenia's got 500 clients, and their families, and then our email list, and then the social, and then right? Like, and it's like, hey, a ripple can create waves. But now if you look at it, even like these micro gyms, which there's, I think 40,000 or something like that. Same thing, 40,000 times 100 to 200, millions of people. But the key is, how do I get them to stay? How do I get them to do it for years, long enough to where they've built these skill sets? Now they're instilling them into their families, right? Because it's like, I can't remember which mentor was like, hey, change a man and a woman, change a family, you change, a community, change a community, change a city, change a state. So, it's, people look outwards versus looking like, man, like, let me focus on what's right in front of me. And you'd be, some of the biggest names that today did that. It's like, you just keep doing that, become great at the thing that you do. And then for me, like, getting on any show, any video, is because if I can influence 100 coaches or 10 coaches or, 1,000 people, whatever, like I'm doing the job, right? And it's like, if you know that the job is transforming lives, and you elevate like what we actually do, it's a different ballgame. You show up differently. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, if I told you, hey, tomorrow you're speaking in front of 10,000 people, and there's gonna be big names in the audience, you'd be like, holy shit, like, you're gonna prepare, you're gonna you're gonna go crazy to make sure that you look. But I'm like, why don't you do that every damn day as being a coach? Take it seriously, and like, you're gonna achieve great things, not just hey, financially, and you can build a career, which you can do better than you've ever been able to in this industry today, right? Like, when I started, it was like, man, there's no social this, that, the other. There's no affiliates and brand sponsorships. And, there's so, and by the way, you're on average, we are making more. If you look at the stats, like, it's going up and up and up and up. So why don't you show up and like be elite, but that means elite habits, elite behaviors, being a pro, turning pro in this industry. Because I think folks don't show up pro, and then they're upset that, they're not getting the results that are pro with their clients and or like the money that they make, right? But I'm like, when I analyze people's days, I'm like, dude, this is hobby type shit. Not, and by the way, like, I was doing it as a hobby, but I was showing up pro. I'm prepping the night before. I'm having 4x6 cars with people's birthdays and what I need to adjust, and like, always ready, right? Like, so you can't expect to like get the best stuff, but your effort is, a 3 out of 10.
Okay. To go back to your athletic career, how many years did you spend treating yourself like a pro before you were a pro?
Do
you get one? Like, you didn't turn pro and go, oh, I'm going to get my shit together now.
No, basically a decade.
Yeah, sure.
It's a decade. And I think, by the way, in this industry, you can, excel pretty fast. I'm a huge fan of the apprenticeship model. And I think the apprenticeship model has maybe slowly, like faster, started dwindling because of online. And I think online can be great. Like, you can get a course today and start studying it. But I stood on the shoulders of giants. For my first 10 years in the industry, I'm not exaggerating. So first 10 years, I'm at least at 150 live events. You talk about the cert, the mentorship, the performance, every single thing, I'm at it, right? I'm around the best coaches. I'm, all day long, I'm looking at what all my money was spent on that. That was literally like, I saved my money. It's going back into education of myself, right? It's like the S&P and me. Like, what's my stock price as a coach going up? I'm reinvesting in myself. And the speed that I can get better if I'm with Stu McMillan or Dan Paff or Derek Hansen or, I could go on and on about specific topics and which areas it are, but like 3 days with them all day, I'm going to come back and be a much better coach as I'm applying it than it's like if I watch a course or if I read a book. And I'm certainly not against those things because I think they're great, but I think the apprenticeship model is like, get under somebody that's been there, done that, doing it, and you can learn, because now you're learning how they coach to get great results, but you're also like, oh, they got a full book of business. What are they doing to have a full book of business? How are they communicating with clients? How they're following up? How are they treating people, right? And that speeds everything up. So, I said 10 years, for sure, to become, 1%, like, it might take you 10 years. But the cool thing today is that, like, within years, you can be in the top 3% because most people aren't willing to do these basic things extraordinarily well, right? Like, so I think that the cheat code, if there ever was a cheat code, is like, man, get around those people. Like, hire the best trainer in your area for, 4 sessions per month, 2 per month if you can't afford more. And just keep doing that and be like, well, that guy's been doing it for 15 years, 10 years. They're packed, right? Demand's high. So what are they doing? Well, just get trained by them, ask them questions. This is the best. Like, I would say if you're a coach in our area, I'd be like, join Vigor, like, join my gym, see how we operate. Like, like, what I charge for mentorship is significantly higher than if you just join the gym and I'm probably coaching you in a group and you can talk to me because I'm a geek and I like talking about training, right? So I think that it is simple. It's not easy, but it's definitely simple. And the thing is, there's a reason why there are frameworks, right? And like, a lot of people today are kind of like, well, I don't want to follow this person's framework. I want to do it my own way. I'm like, that's dumb. Follow the framework. You being you is going to be your own way anyways, right? And you got to be a good cook before you're a chef. So why don't you just follow the damn framework?
Are you a gym owner struggling to build a staff that sells, leads, and sticks around? Then you can't miss this. September 18th and 19th, my friends at the Varsity House are hosting the Business of Strength retreat at the beautiful Canopy Hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona. The theme this year is Interns to All-Stars, your complete employee development playbook designed for gym owners. You will get the same systems used at Varsity House to turn brand new interns into six-figure coaches, managers, and even partners. A 10-week intern training program, team alignment and cultural leadership strategies, sales systems that make every coach a closer, a plan to retain and reward your best people for the long haul, their proprietary on-the-job training program, workshops with other world-class gym owners, and a chance to win a $5,000 private consulting package. Plus, you'll hear from elite speakers like Mark Innes, Joe Riggio, Dan Goodman, Devin Gage, and a stacked panel of top gym owners doing this at scale. They will also have a rooftop cocktail party, which will take an already great networking experience and make it even better. They only have 50 seats available. Visit bosretreat.com to register now. Use the code ELITE250 to save $250 as a VIP listener to the Table Talk podcast.
I did it, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, Mel Robbins was saying, like, here's the 3 things that you do to build a, speaking business. It's like, speak, you're going to probably do it for free. Make a website that has like nice pictures and, stuff from other speaking engagements, and then start posting about your speaking stuff. Like, that's the, have testimonials of other people that brought you out to speak. They're like, Mel was great. Okay, cool. Now follow that framework like a crazy person, and I remember 2014, I did 24 weeks of lunch and learn straight in my local community, right? For small businesses. Because I knew that, like, okay, how do I get in front of people and speak a lot? And I just did tons of calls and emails. I'm talking, for every 20 emails and calls, I'd get like 2 speaking engagements, maybe 3, right? And I was just cranking. And a lot of people want you to speak, especially if it's for free, on nutrition and lifestyle and whatever. At the end of the 24 weeks, how much better do you think I was at speaking in front of like lunch and learn audiences? Holy shit, like significantly better, right? And it's like the Tony Robbins story of how do you get good at speaking. He did a Jim Rohn thing. Jim Rohn said, hey, you got to get in front of people and speak. And the other people that were in that mentorship program, one did once a week, one did it once a month. Tony Robbins did like 7 or 10 per week, right? He was just running around doing speaking. By the end of the year, this guy's like got 10x more reps. It's like, oh man, how did you get ahead? It's like, well, I just did more reps, right? And I learned, because the thing is, the power of feedback loops, right, is that you did it on Monday, and if you recorded it or somebody gave you feedback, it's like, hey, you say a lot, you say right a lot, you stutter. Tuesday, a little bit better, and then you're doing it so frequently that your feedback loop is so much faster. You improve so much better. The guy going once a week, let alone once a month, by the 7th month, he's gotten better, but you've gotten like 52 times better at that point in time. And so that's the power, I think, of the apprenticeship model, or being around people that are great. Like you come in here, and I guarantee you'll be better at lifting, in a month maybe than it took you 10 years to do. And because this idea that, like, if you guys heard this, where it's like, I've been in the industry for 10 years. So that's supposed to mean like that you're good, right? But it's like, what if for 10 years you've been doing dumb shit, right? And Craig Weller had a great story about surfing that relates well to this. And, he was like, man, I love to surf. And I surfed for years and years and years. And I kind of got stuck. I never got better. Went to surf camp. In 1 week, I got 10 times better, because what I realized is for all those years, I was repeating stupid habits that made me shittier. So I just got good at being shitty, right? Yeah. And it's, I got tons of these stories when I played ball. Like I'd always stay afterwards and shoot shots, and it wasn't my coach. It was a skills coach that was in the building. It was like, hey, what are you doing, man? I was like, I'm shooting 500 shots, man, to get better. He said, how many are you making? I was like, I don't know. I'm just shooting 500 shots. He's like, well, what if you're making 50%? You're actually unguarded, by the way. So you're actually practicing to be mediocre. So he's like, why don't you get closer, make 90% of the shots, step back, 90% of the shots, keep going back until you keep making 90% of the shots, then make it harder. Start dribbling faster, cone, this, that, the other. Count your makes. Work on the 90% made versus like, I'm just putting up shots. And it was such a big aha moment, because he was like, you're practicing to be mediocre right now. Cause we ended up watching. He's like, go ahead. You know, like now I got the eyes on me as well. So I'm nervous and shit, you know, so I'm missing a lot of shots. And it's like, he's like, man, let me tell you this. When somebody's guarding you full speed and you're tired, and so you're going to make another 30% of the ones that you already made. So you have to practice excellence. And to me, that was just like, oh shit, you know, back to like what coaching and sports did for me. Cause it made me kind of understand that, like, whoa, when I coach, I can't, you know, be a kind of a slave to my emotions, you know. And I used to do the whole go to sleep at 1, wake up at 4:30, run the group class, coach semis, go to the big box gym, coach for 11 hours straight, come back, train athlete, you know. And this idea of like, whew, I gotta show up and do things at a high standard. I gotta make 90% of my buckets I gotta show up at a certain level as a coach. And then literally, it's like I did it for so long. It's the only thing I know, right? You wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, go like, you got to run a group class, you got to coach. I'm telling you, like, I have a switch, and it's like I'm on, but you can't just turn it on. You know, you fall to the lowest level of your training, and this is why I'm so passionate about. You know, I'm so passionate about coaching the craft, but I'm so passionate about coaching the coaches, right? Because when you talk about this, how do we change this country when it comes to health? It is like this, you know, again, it sounds corny, but I don't give a shit. Like it's, you know, there's this army of coaches that each influence 50, 100, 200, maybe 1,000, or maybe, you know, you get to where you do 10,000 people or 1 million people, but that's how you change it. You don't wait for, hey, we're waiting for, you know, this government and this guy to make this decision about my health, right? And it is complex. I'm not going to be the person that says, you know, super easy, 1, 2, 3. It's not, but I know that if you take back control and go like, hey, it's on me as a coach, and you get your clients to go like, hey, it's on me. You know, it's my responsibility to take care of my health and my family's health. Like now we're starting to make a difference, right? But it's like a team. Hey, in basketball, I can be great if my 4 other guys aren't playing defense, and now we're, you know, it's gonna be a problem, right? And
so Dave's had a good analogy at times where with lifters and athletes, just, you know, if you were a fly on the wall of your own training session, what would your opinion be of your own training efforts, right? But if we flip that now to coaching and say, like, to your coaches, if you were a fly on a wall for one of your own coaching sessions, whether it's small group or whatever, what would you think? Are you practicing excellence, as you say, so on and so forth? For you, what are the biggest deficits that you think most coaches would find in their own performance if they were to be that fly on the wall?
I think first, here's this is a great kind of segue to this. One of the things every coach should do, I believe way less than 1% of coaches do this. Film your own sessions. And mic yourself up. I mean, now you got DJI mics, what is it, $100, you know, so you can't say like technology, right? Because it's not like, here's the thing, there's 2 components of it. I would say communications, you know, 80, 90% nonverbal, right? And I do this all the time where I'm like, all right, cool, film your session, send it to me. I'll just watch, I'll mute it, and then I kind of speed it up. I want to see, you know, hands in pockets, on the phone, turn to the client, or maybe, you know, new client, very threatened, new in the gym, you're standing over them, no go, right? Like, so I'm like, we start making points. I'm like, hey, look, like if would you pay for your session if you're looking at your energy and how involved you are with the client? Do you look present? Do you look excited to be there? Because like if we're going to coffee and you're talking to me, Dave, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, you know, you'd be like, dude, this guy's a shithead. You know, like you'd be like, man, my body language would already be like, you're not engaged with me, right? Now this person is investing their hard-earned money with you, and you're not, you know, you're not present, you're not energetic. Or I always say, like, you can't bring your problems to the gym. You know, like you've having a, you know, your cat died or whatever the hell it may be, and it's like, hey, I'll cry with you later, but during the session, like, this is the best part of the client's day. They got a ton of their own problems. You can't bring your own problem and be like, hey, let me tell you about my day, you know, how shitty it was. And, you know, people are empathetic and, you know, they'll listen to you, but you're not doing your job. So I'm looking at that first, like, what's body language like? And there's tons of different no-nos that I'm looking for. Second is, obviously, I'm listening with the voice. What are you saying? How are you saying it? Right? It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. We could go like, hey, you know, deadlifts are good. Okay, but like, how are you doing the deadlift, right? XYZ is good. Yeah, but how are you executing that? Well, communication is like that. Are you always talking, or are you asking a bunch of questions? You know, do you know when to, like, you don't want the session to become a therapy session. So I call it keep it moving, right? You want to connect with the client, but you want to keep it moving because we want to train them so that we get the result. Well, doing that on camera will tell you a lot. And I did this, and I continue to do this. And a lot of times, back in the day, it was cringe. Oh shit, I thought I did a much better session than I did, but I realized like all these things that I'm doing, right? So that's one. Number two is the window test. The window test is just like, hey man, if somebody I really, really respected came by and watched my session, how would my clients be? And we do this, for example, where a coach will come and assess another person's training session, group, semi, and just be like, hey, what was good? What could have been better? Would you recommend, your friend to come to this session? And if you're like a 6 or 7 out of 10, that's not good. It's got to be like a 9 or 10. And all it is like a feedback loop. I mean, what would you pay for, the top power lifters to just every session you come in and do your session and you got the top guys just standing there going, coaching you up. I mean, dude, priceless, right? Well, why don't we, within the network that we already have more of that? Like when I go to different places and speak at events and stuff like that, I'm always training. Like, if I'm with people that love to train, and like we're always getting a training session, always coaching each other up. Hey, what do you do about this? What about this? What's some new stuff that you've been learning? Like I got 2-3 hours with them. We're all getting better. But in your own, I think the ego is the thing that kind of stops you from doing that. Oh, somebody else is going to come tell me how I don't do something well. No, I'd rather just be oblivious to it, But it comes back to that feedback loop. And, when you look at, and I went and studied a lot of, Daniel Cole's, talent code or the gold mine effect. And I could go over and over all these different books and courses I went through. But when you look at the Renaissance, think about the people that came from the Renaissance: Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Dante Alighieri. I mean, it goes on and on. This is Florence, which is not far from where I grew up from. Little small city. People have been remembered for hundreds of years. But the apprenticeship model was you worked under a master for a decade. Right now, I don't think you need to do that today for a decade, but it's like, then they'd go like, you're good enough. Go ahead, do your thing, right? And how can we instill this kind of like in a micro coaching environment today? That's how I look at it, right? Like I could easily be like, well, I've been doing, I've got 100 certs and I've been under all these people and I mentored them. I don't need any of that, or it's like I bring the best people in my gym and educate my team. And then we do an in-staff and then we're training together and I'm asking questions. And it's like, I'm always on top of it because that's micro coaching. So our own in-staffs, training with other trainers, hiring people, even though I believe I'm really damn good at this thing, it's like, there's always insights I get. Because if you think of, you look at the industry and you go, that guy's the best at, fill in the blank, speed, or this person's the best at, team speed, and this person's the best at, muscle building, and this person's the best at power building, powerlifting or strength training, or this person's, and now I can learn from these folks, right, and implement it into my own thing, because all they're doing is they're in this one pocket and they're the best at it, right? They can definitely teach me to be better, but I'm using all these things. I mean, what are you not doing? Like in my gym, I've got elite athletes, high school athletes, college athletes, moms, people with hip replacements, so on and so forth, right? And so I'm going to continue to go to those people and be able to get better at the craft. And then I'm going to apply that craft to my clients. And it's a forever thing. And I think that once you start thinking like that, it truly changes you as a coach, right? It's like, there is no, I'm there, I got there. That's it. I'm good. I'm done. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think one way it was summed up to me, and I'd like your opinion on this, is that, as a coach, if you're Gen Pop or whatever, you can't be too narrow because you have this wide skill set of people you're going to have to deal with and work with. But other people can go very deep and narrow.
Yes.
But if you associate with those, because it might take a decade to go deep and narrow. You don't have 10 years to go deep and narrow here and here and here. But if you associate with all of those people, you can kind of by proxy get the benefits of their 10 years and their 10 years and their 10 years.
Yes.
And kind of integrate them into your own. How much do you find that there you get kickback though when you are mentioning things like apprenticeships and working in person with people, even though, let's take your average coach right now is probably doing some in-person work and some remote work. And if you said, I'm sure at some point they probably all recommended like, oh, you're really struggling with your squat. Well, there's only so much we can do online. Why don't you come see me in person? And we can probably not, like, we all know this, that in person, there are intangibles and small details that you just can't get anywhere else. So how do you go about kind of breaking down that barrier to coaches to making them value that more? Because what I found, I'm from the UK, I found that when we do seminars and stuff in Europe, people will travel and they will pay and they will come to workshops, no problem. And, that to them is just kind of bread and butter of getting better. Whereas, and I don't want to be critical here, over in North America, it's a little bit different. They don't seem as readily available to do that, or maybe they don't perceive the value as high. So how do you go about kind of navigating that mindset with them?
I mean, I think this is where it becomes interesting. If you are positioned, this is why I talk about this so much, because hopefully people are like, well, Luka's built a career, so I'm going to listen to him. So, when I say it, that it holds more weight. That's what I hope, right? And it's part of the reason why I want to continue to elevate my positioning, right? Because you do influence more. And I think one of the things too is like, if you can just get a person to do it one time, there's contrast, right? The moment that they do a coaching session with you on squatting, and they're like, shit, I watched this course on squatting, but like, it doesn't hold a candle to being with the person. And, now I got contrast, and people need contrast. And so I think that's one of the things, because, you're fighting against the same thing as, Uber Eats, right? Like, shit, I just press a button and they're going to be here, right? It becomes so convenient. I can just buy a course, I went through, and by the way, like, it's become so challenging now that people are like, yeah, man, I watched, that video was like an hour and a half long, man. I'm like, I know, but I created an hour and a half long YouTube video that like could be paid for, but it's free. You know what I mean? Go watch it and get better. It's like, yeah, that's long. We got to do short form content. And my point being is like, look, what's difficult is scarce, and what's scarce is valuable. So if everybody can do it, it's worth less. So that's my argument to coaches is like, hey, let's find, like, you can do it this way, but if you really want to become like top notch, like, do it that way.
I'm always looking for ways to improve my training, business, life, but none of that matters if my sleep is trash. If your sleep sucks, your recovery and performance is compromised. Sleep is the ultimate recovery tool, and temperature plays a massive role in this. This is where the Chili Pad comes in. It's a water-based, temperature-controlled mattress topper that fits any bed. You can set the temperature from 55 degrees to 115 degrees and even schedule changes throughout the night. It also has dual zone control, so I can stay cool while my wife stays warm. Visit www.sleepme/tabletalk to get 20% off your Chili Pad with code TABLETALK. This special offer is available for Table Talk listeners and only for a limited time. Order it today with free shipping and try it out for 30 days. You can return it for free if you don't like it with their Sleep Me trial. Visit www.sleepme/tabletalk and see why cold sleep is your ultimate ally in performance and recovery.
Right. And it's persuasion, it's influence, it's Robert Cialdini shit, right? Whereas, how do you get somebody to understand the value of something like that? It's bigger. And I look, in coaching, we always have to relate things to what matters to a person. So if you told me, yeah, listen, Luka, but I want to just make more money online, I'm going to relate how going into a live, training session or seminar is going to help you make more money online. Which it will. I do believe that, but I have to relate it to the thing that you want. If I'm going riffing off of what I think is important, but you're like, I don't give a shit. If somebody comes in and they're like, my back hurts. It's like, okay, we're going to deadlift. You're like, whoa. But if you go like, no, actually, look, we're going to do it this way and that way. We'll start with kettlebell. And it's going to help you strengthen your back and have better form and, get those tissues resilient and improve tolerance. And this is what's going to help you with your back. Different story, right? So you always have to relate things back to what people want. By the way, I don't get the guy that I'm training that will, probably sign like $18 million a year contract. It's the same thing, right? Hey, listen, man, we're doing these things because we don't want you to get injured again. We're going to make this knee resilient as can ever be, so you can keep playing and you can get 2 contracts, for 3 years at this rate, right? Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Sounds good, coach. Whereas to Susie, it might be like, hey, the jiggle under your tricep that you want to get rid of, that's going to help with that. Cool. I'm in, I wasn't in, but now I'm in.
Yeah.
And that, notice like it comes back to, did we talk about sets and reps and, what the insertion point is and, no, you got to know that. What I'm knowing here is like, I'm understanding influence and persuasion because, Daniel Pink, to sell is to be human, right? People are like, well, I'm not in sales, Luka. Why should I study sales? I'm like, listen, you're selling all day. Like your girl wants to get a burger, you want to get a pizza. Somebody's going to win to sell. You know what I mean? You're in the office like, shit, like I don't have time to finish this project. Mary, could you help me out with this project? You're going to have to sell her, right? Because you know what? When you're struggling with that, I'm going to help you out. Don't worry about it. I got you, right? We're always selling. So you got to understand sales and influence and persuasion, because if you can't sell to that client to do the thing and to buy in, I don't care how much you know about, like the Prolepin charts and everything else. It's just not going to work. And that, by the way, like, it took me a while to realize that. So it wasn't like year one, I'm like, I got it. It was, I went through a lot of failure to realize that, holy shit, like it's me that doesn't have the skill set. Because this is another one that you'll hear a lot, right? Like, well, Luka, I got uncommitted clients. I'm like, yeah, that's why the fuck they hired you. Like, it's like, I mean, look, you're gonna get like, have you seen this online? It's like, I only take applications for people that are committed. Crickets, it's like, that's why we're there, to help keep them accountable, right? And so what you have to realize, and this was tough for me, is to go and say is, I don't have the skill sets to be able to help this person. It's not, they're not the problem. I don't have those skills. I can help these people, but I'm not good enough yet at motivational interviewing. And, like I don't know these things. So I had to go and learn them. And then, but that was the bigger realization, because there's so many coaches like, well, shit, like, people just don't, that's why you're there. And by the way, when you can help those people, that's why you make the big bucks. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of people can help the committed people. I mean, for me, when I was growing up, if you told me not make it to the NBA, like blend this shoe in a blender and drink it, I'm drinking it. I'm the easiest guy, right? Like, but it's like most people are not like that. So you have to elevate your coaching skill sets to be able to help them.
Sure.
And it's hard to hear, but it's true.
One of the habit, I've got all your habits of elite coaches written down here on my slide. The one that, there was a couple that jumped out to me, but this one bleeds into that straight away, which is being a social chameleon, which I really like, by the way, mainly because it's very common, I find, to get feedback from coaches being like, yeah, but this is who I am, or I don't want to be dishonest to people or be so can you because have you heard something to that effect before?
All the time.
So can you kind of go into that and say how, like, well, really that's bullshit, because like,
absolutely,
you don't sit down with your friends and talk the same way you talk to your grandma.
Yeah.
Are you bullshitting her? Do you know what I mean? So
when you have a job interview,
yeah,
I'm beating myself.
So how important is it for coaches to let go of that and be aware that if they want success, they need to be kind of variable or plastic in their behavior?
I mean, number one, I'd say, like, let's zoom out and say, like, what's your goal? The goal is to help that person, because helping that person is going to get you what you want, right? And the thing is, do you want to be right, or do you want to get what you want, right? So it comes back down to it that, like, first of all, different people talk to you differently. This is human. This is normal. Right? Do you go to a kid and go like, hey, what's up, Jack? We're gonna, you don't, you're like, hey, Jack, can we, you talk differently. Your tone is different. Same thing, you go to grandma. And by the way, how to be a social chameleon is, one, how to talk to people differently. Where like the Susan, I might be like, how's that knitting class going? Oh, I'm glad you asked, Luka. It's excellent. Look, I made this sweater. Oh, it's awesome. It's beautiful. Right? And then I'm going to go to the guy that's just like, dude, did you buy that new Porsche? You going racing again? Fuck yeah. Right? Like, different conversations, different tone of voice. In coaching, it's different. Like, I got a group class. I got the older lady, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to put my knee in front of your knee. Okay, it's going to make your hips go back. Great job, Susan. Awesome. Right? And I'm like, Jay, put some fucking more weight on that. But like, it's like, and then they're like, yeah, because he's a former athlete and he likes that push and different communication. How am I moving around if I got 60 people in a small group? I got 6 athletes. I got XYZ. You have to become really good at that. And it comes back to the same thing. People will, it's so crazy. Like, people will argue for their limitations. Like, well, I'm not going to change. Like they'll have to just accept me the way they are. Cool, you're gonna have 2 clients. You know what I mean? Like, but that's bullshit. That's a lie. Because again, how many settings, like throughout the day, that person has to change all the time. The way to speak to people. Who am I speaking to? What's the scenario? Hey, somebody just again, lost their cap. Like, how are you going to be empathetic? Your voice is going to be different, right? You're not going to, well, I'm just being myself. No, like, you're constantly changing and changing towards different people. And so I think that all of these things are a cover up for when we, remember, awareness precedes change. So step one, awareness, right? Assessment precedes awareness. I'm going to go back to, like, why do you do an assessment in lifting? Right now you can lift 85 pounds. That's the assessment. Mm-hmm. You're weak as shit. Okay, right? We're going to get stronger. Hey, let me video your form. That's an assessment. Rounded back, knees, right? That's an assessment. Now you have awareness, and now it's like, okay, now we can get it better. But it's the same thing with this. I would hope, going back to the apprenticeship thing, somebody you highly respect that goes, hey, do you mind if I give you some feedback? Which is, by the way, a very important thing. Like, ask for permission, right? Because then they're like, yeah, sure. See, now they gave you permission, right? So, hey, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out that you do, I think would be much more helpful for the client and for your career if you do it differently. And here's why, right? Because now it's like, okay, peer, I respect that person. I ask you for permission to give you feedback. Cool. Now I'm going to give it to you. So now you have the awareness of what you're doing. And, there was people, I mean, I got 1,000 scenarios where somebody I respected, like, again, Martin was a person like, hey, you're on fire, but you curse too much when you speak. And guess what? I was like, yeah. It's like, dude, you're just filling words with fuck. It's like, and it's, guess what? Over the years, I mean, I pretty much almost eliminated it. I still say here and there where I'm like just fired up about it. But, 2 years later, he's like, man, this is so much better. Here's the thing is, like, your message doesn't come across when you do that, because it can throw a lot of people off. And so from one of the best speakers in the industry that I respect, I'm going to listen to that. And I started cutting it down and cutting it down and cutting it down, right? So I think that's why it's so important to have, don't just like listen to feedback, like seek feedback.
Well, the inverse to the statement you made is interesting to me, right? Because that person that feels that way, like, fuck them, I'm just going to be who I am, expects the server at the restaurant to be able to treat them a certain way. Right. So they expect everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
True story.
So they're a fucking hypocrite.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
But yeah, they'll bitch about other people that are hypocrites.
I come to this establishment and I want this type of service. And it's like,
so you want them to not be themselves.
Correct.
But yet you want to be yourself with the people that you serve.
But the thing is, I think all of those things are like, and I'm, if I get too off course, just let me know, man. But like, when I think this is an important part of the story. So I got married young. I got divorced. I did a lot of stupid shit, right? And that was like right around when I was 30. And I had to admit, like, dude, why do I do stupid things? Went into therapy, went into Wake Up Warrior, all that stuff. And I went through a bunch of books and that end up going into the coaching. Debbie Ford has a couple of excellent books. Dark Side of Light Chasers, Why Good People Do Bad Things. Because I was trying to understand myself. Like, why am I just messing things up in my life, right? And that went down the rabbit hole. And part of, what Debbie Ford and Dark Side Light Chasers talks about is how we suppress different parts of ourselves, like emotions and stuff like that, right? Like when you're young and it's like, you're about to go to your aunt's and you're like, I don't want to go to my aunt's. And your mom's like, get a straight face. We're going. Don't look, And so you suppress that, right? Or, hey, don't be jealous. You suppress. So you keep suppressing. It's almost like rooms in a house, one room is one emotion. Look, we're going to lock that shit up. Right. And then you grow up and it's like, there's all these emotions that you're not, allowed to feel. So you suppress, which is never a good thing. That was a lot of what I was doing. I grew up in socialism and it's like, hey, you can't cry, you can't do this, you can't do that. So what ends up happening, and I'm going to get back to this as far as like what you said, you're expecting a certain type of behavior for a certain type of person. We have all of those things in ourselves, right? Everybody gets pissed off, jealous, mad, hurt. Like when you suppress those emotions, it's more likely that those things explode out at the time where you don't want it. And somebody's going to be like, well, what does that have to do with coaching? Because self-management allows you to manage others. You have to be a representation of coaching and doing a good job, which to me, if you ask me, I'm still a big believer, like, taking care of yourself, being healthy, like being an example of what you do. But that also comes with like, how do you expect others to be respectful to you or talk to you in a certain way if you don't? And it goes back to, we all have those things inside of ourselves. hey, I'm going to be nice and kind to a person when I need to be, but hey, is it sometimes valuable to not be nice and kind to people? You better believe it, right? If somebody is talking like crazy to my family, like it's going to be a problem. I'm going to get very, very unnice and unkind, right? And it's useful in a very specific matter. But if you suppress all these different things and you believe like, well, I'm this is just how I am. What? So you're just one way? That's unhuman. That's not human, right? Like you're all the different ways. And I think that when you suppress, and I know I'm getting like now, I'm like, this guy's fucking telling me to go to therapy, probably. but it was, that is when I realized. Let me kind of share the reason why I even brought that up. At that point in my career, which is 7 years in, right? What I realized is that like the people that I was like, oh, you're not committed to fitness. I was like, holy shit. They have an area of their life that they struggle a lot with. And I'm telling them that they're uncommitted. But in another area of my life, I'm messing up and I'm struggling and I'm having a tough time overcoming it. And it's not just like, hey, eat more protein and more veggies next week. Cool. All right. In my life, I went to therapy. I had to go join a program. And it like created so much awareness around my own life and what I was doing. Now, I'm not saying, become you're going to be a licensed psychiatrist to your clients, but I do believe that you have to understand these things, right? Because then you can be aware of them and you can guide people through certain things in a much better way. And one of them, again, being what we were just talking about is like being a social chameleon. We kind of looped it right back around, but it working on oneself will actually help you become more like that. It's not just like I read the book X and O, cool, do it, right? Yeah.
Well, you mentioned in one of your videos that you had done Thibodeau's neurotyping system. Yeah. So he's been one of my mentors for a long time now, and I was lucky to kind of learn it directly from him. And for those that don't know, it's basically a system for assessing psychological profiles, isn't it? And I found of all the things I've ever done, that for me was the game changer for coaching. If I had to pick one thing, training methodologies and all that stuff is cool, but it set me down the rabbit hole of psychology and the psychology of coaching. So I'm not saying people should do that system specifically, but for you, how big of a role does that skill set and knowledge play in being a good coach? Is it understanding people have different mannerisms, different habits, different styles of thinking and perceiving the world, and how you tailor maybe not just how you act, but even how you program and so on and so forth to that?
I mean, it's big. Here's why, right? Because if you're a person that studies training and you're so locked in on like what works, right? We have to have progressive overload. We have to do this. And it's like, hey, the program has to stay the same and consistent for at least 3 to 6 weeks. These are all the generalizations that, you kind of hear and whatnot, right? But then it's like, if you understand people and like novelty seekers, and then you start, and by the way, I learned this through learning it, but then applying it. So the person that like wants novelty, I call it the 60-40, 70-30. Can I make 60% of the program structured and progressive, but then the 40% is I'm still getting the result that they like, they want to work on arms and abs. Cool. We're switching it up every session. Still working on arms and abs. Still got some progressive overload. But they're like, cool, I can't wait for the next session where you do this new thing. But that's the thing that's going to make them keep coming back. Where if I don't, they might not even tell you, by the way. They're just going to be like, yeah, they'll tell you some other life thing. Like, everything's become more expensive. I just got to put it on pause for a little bit. But all that happened was that they were just like, I want more novelty in my training, right? And like, you're not giving me the novelty that I want. So I'm going to go to this coach that has a different workout every time, right? And by the way, we can argue whether it's good or bad or it's going to get you there. But guess what? If they keep coming back to that workout, even though it's not smart, I'm juggling this. Like, who was the more successful coach? Because at the end of the year, they would have lost maybe 20 pounds, put on some muscle with that coach, right? And again, I think it's not either or. I think it's and, right? And same thing. Let's go back to the person that's, kind of seeking more safety, and you start putting more weight on the bar. And I've experienced this where you see them. It's almost like, I don't know, somebody just robbed them at gunpoint. You put on more weight on the bar, and they're like, right? Versus like, we're going to progress it by adding a 3-second eccentric and a pause at the bottom. Same weight, right? 6 weeks, 2 weeks this, 2 weeks this. And we intensified it in some way. And then when they own it, hey, do you mind if I put on how much? And not only like, do I put on XYZ weight? You go like, hey, do you want me to put on 10 pounds or 5 pounds? I gave them a choice, right? It's like it's autonomy, right? Like, 5. Okay, cool. They do it. And then you're like excited, man, you crushed it, right? Because we are building that self-esteem. And guess what? Over time, maybe they're not that person anymore, right? Maybe they're not the whole safety person anymore. So, because they can change over time. That's another thing too, right? And I think that's a huge aspect, because it goes back to, am I a master of my craft? How many different things influence people when we're lifting, right? And again, I learned some things the hard way, but a lot of it was like, who's the best person in the world doing this stuff? Cool, let me get around him. Let me read the book. Let me do the course. Let me do this internship, whatever I need to do. And then I'm bringing it back and I'm doing reps. And then you learn, because I don't, online, you see this stuff all the time. Somebody writes a program. I look at the program. I'm like, you're not training. You're not training groups. You're not, there's no way, right? Or you have this best in the world scenario. But if I have a coach that has an 800 square foot gym, they can fit in 7-8 people. They only have one trap bar. How would you do it now? Right? There's context to everything. And so you gotta, it is art, man. It's a science and an art. And it's like Martin said, he's it's like jazz. You have the notes on the paper and they're just notes, right? But when the person starts playing jazz, man, it gives you a feeling. That's what great coaching is. It's like science and art come together in this music, right? And you want to just keep getting better at the thing. And if you become elite at that thing, man, you're gonna have a very, very fulfilling, meaningful career, and you're gonna make good chunks of money. I believe that.
Do you find that, if you talk about things like going down the psychology route, or even, we could even talk mobility and, movement quality and stuff like that. A lot of coaches kind of get a reverse to it, because they're like, well, how do I assess this stuff? How do I put in a framework to constantly assess these things? Whereas I think from what you're talking about and being a good coach, your answer, and I'm presuming here, would be really, if you listen properly and you're attentive, your clients are probably giving you all the data you already need to be the best coach for them. You just got to kind of listen.
Yes.
Right. So how much for you does it come down to being attentive and being present, and most of the time shutting up and letting them almost lead, if that makes sense? Whereas do you find that it's common for coaches want to impose themselves too much?
Yeah. And it comes back to, I definitely did this the first years of my career, because you're learning so much, but you're insecure. So that combination makes you want to share everything that you know. So it's a lot of yapping, right? Somebody's squatting and you're like, all right, soft knees. You give them 7 coaching cues and the person's brain is going to explode, right? But you're trying to share what you know. Whereas, once you get the experience and awareness of it, you realize less talking, saying the right thing at the right time. And and again, I think with every client, but especially Gen Pop, where it's like, where did you feel that? How did that feel? Right? Do you want to, so, because the thing is, if you guys have heard of self-determination theory, so it's basically what internally motivates human beings, right? There's 3 things: competence, autonomy, and relatedness, which is community, right? So competence is skill set. If you are getting better at the thing, it's motivating you. I don't have to give you a carrot. I don't have to go hey, listen, do the squat better. I'm going to give you $100. If you get better at it, it's internally motivating you, right? Which is why it's so important to show clients that they're getting better during a session. And it can be one more rep, a little bit more weight, but it can also be this is why I do bring in things like the phone, where it's video the drill, coach them up, video the drill when they do it a lot better, and then show it to them. Because it's look how much better you're doing this. Boom, they're feeling that the competence improving, so they're more motivated.
Staying hydrated is huge for training and performance. And this is why today's episode is brought to you by Element. Element gives you exactly what your body needs: 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium, 0 sugar, and no junk. Personally, I like to mix half a pack with my morning oatmeal. I'll use any of the chocolate flavors. I drink it with all my training sessions, watermelon being my favorite. Some other reasons why I use it is stable energy with no crash. It fights off fatigue and cramps, improves mental focus and clarity, helps regulate stress, and supports deeper sleep. And there's no sugar and garbage. Here's the best part: you can try it totally risk-free. Right now, Element is offering a free 8-count sample pack of its most popular flavors. With each purchase, you get 2 of each of these 4 fan favorites, perfect for finding your own favorite or sharing with a friend. Don't like it? Give it to a salty friend, and Element will give you your money back. Head over to www.drink lmnt.com/table talk.
Autonomy is second, so that's choice, right? So being able to go to a person like, do you want to go up 5 pounds or 10 pounds? Choice. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you want to warm up with the sled or the Jacob's ladder? I mean, it's meaning like you can give them two choices that'll make sense, but they keep picking, so they keep building their own autonomy up. Now they don't know you're doing this, but as a coach, you're like, hey, I'm actually getting them more motivated. Relatedness is community. That's why I think, gyms and in-person and stuff like that is so important, because if they have a community that's like-minded, we're social creatures, so we adhere to the standards of the tribe, that's more motivating. But it goes back to, when you're saying like learning how to shut up, it's in sales, they teach 80-20 or 90-10, right? They're talking 80-90% of the time. You're asking questions 10-20. Coaching is not the same, but there's pockets where it's like active listening, repeating back what they said, because people want to be heard. And I don't care if it's the executive or if it's the pro guy or if it's the teacher. They say a thing and you go like, so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying, and I'm going to repeat what they said. Yeah, exactly. But now they feel heard, buy-in goes up, right? Then, hey, do you mind if I ask you a question? Boom, yes. Permission-based asking. Then I'm going to give them a choice. So in that short amount of time in a session, I'm getting that person to buy in more, feel heard, feel understood, feel appreciated. Now, whether they did 6 reps or 8 reps, is that going to make a world of difference at that level? No. Like, if they keep coming back and doing those 8 reps for a long time, I'm winning, right? So I think these are all lessons. But again, how does somebody go like, hey man, you're talking too much? You can record yourself. You can have somebody that's an experienced coach that you respect go like, you just gave that person 11 coaching cues. Like if I give you 11 coaching cues, your brain's going to explode. Like in sprinting, it's I would say a very reptilian kind of, brain type of movement, right? You give somebody 2 coaching cues, they get slower, right? You give them 1 coaching cues. I chase your arms. That's it. Right. So
do you think some of this is also then having the confidence to give up control or responsibility? Because like you're talking there, you're giving a client a choice. Both are fine, but if you know that, or you take an example, this client has a certain personality profile. So you're like, well, this is the training program that I know works and I like to cling on to this. But I know that deep down it's not a good fit for them. So I have to go into kind of uncharted waters a little bit to make it fit for them. So do you think a big part of it then is just having the confidence to go, I know enough, but what matters more is that I know it's okay, it's good, but that I give them ownership and allow them to learn and allow them to get educated. And that doesn't mean they're just going to run away in 3 months because now they know everything.
No, I think so for sure, because we project, right? Like, and think about it, whatever your modality is, you're going to project the modality becomes the tool to get the result. Kettlebells, barbells, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, bodybuilding, right? But if you zoom out and you go, now look, if somebody's trying to be the fastest person on the planet, we don't have as much leeway, right? But that's going to be a different client than most people. Like, I want to get leaner, I want to put on some muscle, I want to get stronger, I want to move better, right? How much think about that. And if somebody goes, I'm giving examples of things that I've experienced. Hey, those steel maces you guys got, I want to work with those. Okay. Now me going like, well, that's not really going to, help you with the goal you want. No, I'm like, great. We're going to plug those into your warm-ups. Right. And now they're like, awesome. Like he's listening to what I want, but I'm still going to give them what they need. Right. So I think it is, look, it comes back to dropping the ego and just, you always have to zoom out and go like, what's the actual goal here? Because if the goal is like to get them to their goal, which should be your mission, right? Well, that consistency is needed to get to the goal. I don't give a shit what the goal is. Like, I want to double my trap bar deadlift or deadlift. I want to drop 40 pounds. Okay, that's an 8-month, 12-month goal. So, I mean, right? That's going to take time. So that inherently means that I have to have them keep coming back. And if it means that for them to keep coming back, I got to put the medicine inside of the damn cookie or the smoothie or whatever. That's what I'm going to do, right? So again, you start playing, it's like a piece of the pie. And the piece of the pie is like, hey, we're going to do this much warm up, this much this. I'm going to plug in these exercises that they want because they said, I want to lift my butt up a little bit and I want to get rid of the flabby tricep. Cool. I want to do more abs. Now we know there's no spot reduction, but the thing is, am I wrong if as a coach, if we finish off with arms and do, tricep snap downs for, 2 sets of 50, and they're like, man, this is working. I'm like, hell yeah. And, but they're like, they're going to come back because of that. So I'm doing my job. Now, of course, like as a smart coach, what you end up doing is we're going to squat. We're going to progressively overload it with the squat that's not going to hurt them, that they can do with a full range of motion, right? And we're going to do a pull, and we're going to do a single leg, and we're going to do all this stuff. But within it, we're going to hide the things that they want. So it's a kind of wants versus needs, right? And by the way, like this takes time, and the way that you speed up your knowledge of this is, again, I'm going to keep going back to, get around people that do it and explain why, right? Because at the end of the day, like people, if I'm talking to coaches, I'm going to explain why I'm doing this. Hey man, like why did you put that weird exercise in there? Well, let me tell you why. They came to me last session and they were like, I want to do this exercise, right? No, like I really want to try it. So if I'm like, well, this is not, cool, we're going to do everything else the same. I'm going to plug this exercise in as a filler movement, where it kind of fits in. Cool. We're going to do a lunge. We're going to do this, mobility drill as a filler movement, and then you're going to do your dumbbell bench press, right? So again, it's like, I think that there needs to be context, and if you can create context for the coach and or the client, it's the same thing. Oh, okay, that makes sense, and we continue.
Now, if I understand your pie, it's like R1, R2, R3. I'm R6.
I'm definitely a big, like I'm a fan of Mike Robertson's R7. We've kind of used that for program design, and I kind of honestly, R1, R2, and R3, we gel it together. So release is soft tissue work, reset is resets, and you can plug in a lot of different, positional breathing, PRI stuff. I think I've done it all, man. I've really done it all, and I'm kind of at a place where I'm like, this is useful, but a lot of it is not, right? Like in R3 is just your dynamic warm-ups, your readiness, right? R4 is reactive. Now I'm a huge fan of doing, my brand online for training is athlete for life. That's how I train. That's what I believe in, that even as you age, you're doing explosive stuff, powerful plyometrics. Now, what that looks like for different people is very different, but nonetheless, if you come to our gym, it's like Linda's 66, like she's doing box jumps and throwing shit against the wall, right? Like then I got, starting old lineman for the Seahawks. Then I got, the number 2 kid in the state for basketball. Like, they're all doing stuff. But then you got Tim, who's 55 and still likes playing soccer and golf. It's like, dude, do you want to hit that ball for it? Like, we're going to do power stuff, right? Everybody's doing plyo on power stuff. It's just looking different. So that's our R4. Then you got R5 is your resistance, which I like to split that up, right? Like strength training and resistance training. Strength training is like, hey, look, we're going to get stronger. So that's going to be our 2 to 6 reps-ish, right? And then resistance is going to be, hey, we're going to build muscle, or maybe we want to, improve tendon strength and do isometrics. Like there's different things that you can do under the resistance training pocket, right? Depending on what the person wants and needs. And then you got R6 is resilience with your conditioning, and R7 is like recovery. Here's a cool down. So, and in the piece of the pie, the way I try to explain that, like if you got a person that has never exercised, right? If they do a dynamic warm-up, and you do 15, 20 minutes of that, what is that for them? That's a damn workout, right? So half of the pie might be R3, right? And then we'll do, 3 exercises for strength, maybe of 2 sets. And that's going to be holy shit, And by the way, they're going to get stronger, they're going to progress. And then, their conditioning is going to be, zone 2, because they don't even do that. So, but then for a guy like that, and I'll give an example of one of my NFL guys that's really strong. He's trap bar deadlifting in the 700s, right? He doesn't need more strength, right? Now, we want to maintain that for sure. But guess what? If rate of force development, not great. Okay, so in R4, we're working, that's a bigger piece of the pie, right? His elasticity, not great, but he does need it. Okay, cool, more of that. Guy's got more muscle than, but hey, we're going to still maintain that. So that's the piece of the pie, right? You got somebody that goes like, hey, look, I'm pretty strong. I really want to build muscle. That's like the main thing I want to do, but I also want to move well. Cool. We got this much R3, R5 resistance is going to be more, right? You kind of, it's just a lens to look at stuff through, because it's very malleable, right? Like, you can do conjugate training, concurrent, like you can do whatever you want with that model. It's just a lens, because it's also very helpful for me to coach my coaches and go, okay, what's what? And then why did you put it in there?
Yeah. So each one of those have the regressions and progressions, and then how much piece of the pie is going to be based upon, I mean, personality can play into that.
Yep.
You know, a lot of different things play into that.
100%.
But it's a template.
Yes,
right?
It's a template.
It covers all those bases, either in, now not all of those can be in growth mode.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
You know,
you can't. Yeah, that's technical. Like, I mean, you get people that are like, want to run a 10K, want to put on 15 pounds of muscle, want a PR in my. It's like, oh. if you wanted to do one or two of those things, what would they be, right? And then you can explain to them like, hey, we'll work in phases. We'll do, 16 weeks building this up, and we'll do this, then we'll do this. I mean, and with a beginner, you can get a lot of things better at the same time, but obviously the more they get progressed, the more you have to get specific with it. But it's also, like when people talk about the whole templates thing, I think it becomes even more important when you have teams and you're educating people, right? Because think about when you're solo, you can do a lot of different stuff. But also, like I remember when I was, solo, and I got like a lot of clients. Okay, cool. Now program for 40, 50 people, and get really creative with it. And man, like it's, you need frameworks, right? Mm-hmm. You need frameworks, then going to work. And then when you get really good, you can do stuff on the fly. And, you said regressions. I would argue that regressions are an incredibly important skill that most people have not mastered, right? It's like, most people look at, especially social media, it's like you see the hardest shit and the craziest stuff, right? But I'm like, I've become exceptionally good at like taking things backwards and not making them feel like it's a regression. That's the other thing too. Hey, we're going to regress you. Like, how doesn't sound great, right? Hey, I got another drill for you that's going to be better for you, right? And on the fly, being able to do that and have a model of like, okay, cool. If they're doing a reverse lunge, what's the other option? Well, it could be a offset reverse lunge with one hand on a rig. Even that's not okay, cool. We're going to go to static. We're going to do a static isometric lunge with holding on to something, right? Like, it's like a lot of regressions, right? Because man, I don't, we get people from all, walks of life that come in and they may just start a group program. So yes, we've assessed them, but the coach has to be really good at making those changes, right? Or even lateralizations, right? Where Kim, a doctor, no cartilage in the knee, and comes in and is like, hey, I want to get in shape, but I can't, this is the furthest I can bend my knee. Now, all of a sudden, like every one of the lunges becomes a sprinter lunge or RDL variation or a single leg hip thrust because she can do those, right? But instead of standing there and going like, what are we going to do with you? And they're just feeling like shit, because it's like, you can't do all these things. Like every one of those things makes a person feel like not enough. And like they're like, oh man, I'm already failing. See, I knew it. Like you have to make them feel as comfortable as possible. Right. And basically be like, oh, listen, I got a great exercise for you. This is just the right one for you. Make them feel good. And they can do it and they're feeling great. Like, oh man, this is the place for me because I regressed it. But like you have to be, that's why you have to study this stuff and practice it, and I love role play. Like this is an example of, for any coach that's listening, how often are you practicing in role play the thing that you're then going to do? Right. I mean, think about basketball. By the time you play the game, you've done 5 days of practice, a lot of it, running over the plays. I mean, I remember, man, when I played pro, holy shit, it's like, there's 27 plays. I'm the point guard. It's like, it's like, but I'm having to practice that because now in the game, everything's faster, you're tired. And, then you come to the game and you execute it so much that you know how to do it. In coaching, people are just like, just show up and shit. It's like, whatever, man. But it's like, if you take it seriously as a craft, it's like, hey, you got 3 minutes to 4 minutes to demonstrate the group training session, and you got to show the exercise, coach it up, and show the regression. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Right? And there's 8 exercises. Can you do it in 4 minutes? And people will go for 8 minutes. Now, what did you do? 8 people for 8 minutes, they're waiting and watching you, cooling down after the warm-up. So you just crushed the experience. So you have to, what I used to do is like phone in front of me. I would go through all the exercises, time it, and be like, man, 5.5, go again, right? And I would just drill. And then I'd get it down. Boom, I show up in class. I'm like on point. So again, it's like, I think that a lot of it is going back to that, turning pro. Like there's each session or each skill set is broken down of different practices. How do you get better at program design? Like we do an in-staff and it's like, all right, great. Who's going to come up and what's the client that you have? Put the program up. Now I've taught them through videos and templates, whatever, write it up. Interesting. Why did you put that there? Just run us through it. And we get better. It's like, you got 2 grip dominant exercises. They're using straps, right? Like, it's like, and we go through it and they're learning as we go through it, but now they're ready for the actual session. Same thing. All right, cool. Look, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to video you. 3, 2, 1. I want you to go coach the class, right? And it's like, first of all, nervous. I'm like, man, like, you got to be able to do that in front of the class. Like, you're nervous, you're on a time, like, so you got to practice this. And all, like, because every component becomes part of, how you coach the person, but also the experience. Because if experience for the client is not good, it doesn't matter if you know your stuff, right? Like, they came in, they didn't feel heard of, like, they didn't feel like you adjusted exercise for them. You kind of just, I see this a lot because I fly quite a bit around the country and consult and do the stuff like that, right? And they're like, can you watch our classes? Can you watch our semi-private coaching? Can you tell me what you see? And I'm just hanging out, right? And you see a lot of this where you can tell people are like, doing a back squat, and like, they can't get deep, they're overarching. You can see like the grimace in the face that's kind of like something's a little off. And it doesn't get like, there continues to be coaching, but they're not just going like, hey, maybe you should do a front squat and put some wedges there. But so now their experience is like, oh, I guess this is how it's supposed to feel, like my hip's gonna hurt. But that's not good coaching, right? And so then again, when they bring me in, that's what I end up doing. Like, we have a team and staff, and I'm like, all right, what could you do here? Let's look at the regression model. What equipment do you have? Do you have a pendulum? You have a belt squat? You got a hack squat? You got, Tate, what if you could get this client right off the bat squatting pretty damn low with no pain, right? And it's like, that's the goal. If we want to produce force, cool. Belt squat, you got it. Awesome. And for them to understand this, because then they're coming into the session prepared. And I keep repeating this thing, prepared. Like, how much time do you spend preparing to have great sessions?
Hey guys, if you're enjoying what you're watching, make sure to take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe.
And I mean, most of the time it's like, well, I'm really busy, so I don't really spend a lot of time prepping. I'm like, man, that should be, like, forgot, was it Lincoln that said, if I need to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend 70% or 50% of the time sharpening an axe. And it's like, you got to sharpen your axe so that you show up and be great, and have that excellent standard, because you can't just, that's like saying, like, you're going to get great at basketball. You're not going to practice your skills. You're going to just play games all the time, which is basically our fucking AAU system right now. Right? Year-round, games, and like kids get burnt out and crushed and injured. And it's like, it's no different in coaching, right? Where you actually have to practice the skill that you will then demonstrate when you're doing the training.
I think a big part of what you're kind of repeating well is not just practicing, but being introspective.
Yeah.
And, it's, again, I think I've got a quote from you here. So it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. Like, crappy practice leads to crappy performance and so on. So I think that's a really good takeaway, just like splitting up the skills of your craft and then practicing them, but also like, are you actually getting better at them? You mentioned with like Vigor Ground, like your goal is to make people like athletic for life, or athletes for life. As you can imagine, a really common problem is that, people probably haven't jumped or sprinted since high school or whatever, right? And then maybe they come to you 15, 20 years later, and it's like, well, I want to do that stuff now. I want to play soccer at the weekends or whatever. How do you go about getting someone from that point? Because I'm sure there are plenty of people watching this now who are probably in that boat, right? I would love to be able to sprint again or jump again, but I haven't done it for 15 or 20 years. What does that process kind of look like for you when you get them in that environment? Like, what are the basic steps you get them doing to get them on that path back to that?
There's a number of things, but I think it comes back to like the whole regression model, right? I mean, sprinting is plyometrics, but people doing simple pogo jumps, jump rope for somebody at the beginning. And by the way, for some people, like, that's a lot, right? Foot fire, which is basically, imagine like hot coals on the ground, you got no shoes off, and you're just trying to like be reactive on the ground. I mean, almost anybody can do that. Thing is, it just might not, you get somebody that's 55 has never done it, it's not going to look like, explosive, but it's going to be for them, right? Things that are very, very simple are med ball throws, but I'm talking about squat and throw, obviously wall throws, and then think slowing people down first. So sled, sprint with the sled, and again, more weight, slower first, take off. And this could take months, right? High knees versus sprinting. And so you just have a progression model where like, and of course you get a feedback loop, like you have a checklist of what things should look like. If it doesn't look right, it doesn't fly right. And always go slower than you think, especially with jump pop, right? Because you want a longer runway. But for me, it's like somebody that's so beginnerish, never done anything. It might be like, hey, it's going to take 6 months. And at 6 months, you're going to be able to do a 10-yard acceleration. That's fine, right? Because I have so many examples of folks that were like there's no way I could ever do that. But they're in their 60s doing like a 30-inch box jump. No shit, you know, and it's, I mean, this is a person that never believed or thought about it or anything else. So again, you know, same thing, like, you know, broad jump, way higher stresses, right? A depth jump to squat jump, but a box jump, low stress. And we have people that start on a 6-inch box or a 3-inch box. I don't care, right? It's just like, hey, learn to absorb force to land the right way. Same thing is like, for most people, like learn to, produce more force. High knees, 5 seconds, 3, 2, 1, go, right? And it's going to look slow and we're just going to kind of microdose it over time. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, they're able to do these things. Now, a strength training obviously is always in the picture. So that in itself helps tendon strength, muscle strength, and being able to kind of have a base for plyometrics. Obviously, it doesn't have to be, you know, 2 times body weight and all this shit that people are saying. But nonetheless, it's just understanding, because, you know, a lot of times what you see is go like, I'm going to do this cool workout, you know, and you got a large group of people and like 3 people should not be doing, you know, even a regular squat jump or a sprint. You know, now you're playing with fire, because there's nothing, you know, and I've had it happen. I mean, so few times, but somebody pulls something, you know, you do a sprint and they pull something and I feel like shit, right? Because it was just like, that person was not ready to do that thing. So you have to right off the bat, not only show the regression. I go to people, I'm like, hey, you're going to be doing this. Not like you're going to, you know, go down a notch or whatever. This is the drill you're going to be doing. Okay, cool. Boom, and they do it, right? Even in larger groups, I mean, we're talking about like 20 people. Now, you want to build up the skill set, but here's the thing is, if you don't have the skill set yet, that's why I create models and templates for my team to go through. If you're ever in doubt, they're not doing it, right? Because I don't want you to, I don't know, maybe they should. Nope, they're not doing it.
Sure.
Right? Because safety is for, I mean, I would say that for, you know, you got a pro athlete that's worth a ton of money, or you got a person that's coming in there trusting you with their health. Thou shalt do no harm is number one, like, period.
Do you think when it comes to that type of power explosive work, you've already mentioned how important regressions are, and I think that's fantastic. Do you think the power of regressions is actually even greater in that scenario? Because why the reason I say that is, in those examples, you give a rookie a depth jump, the potential risk injury is humongous, right? If we're after force production, there's not really anything wrong with doing a box jump if you're too advanced to do a box jump. You can just jump faster or higher, right? So in those scenarios, would your general advice be to, you know, those who are listening or coaching these types of things, that, you know, there's actually nothing wrong with using that same weight on the med ball throw and just moving it faster for a couple of months, or using the same box but just maybe landing better, or whatever? Do you think we need to shift our mindset a little bit with how we're looking at these types of exercises so that people have more success with them? For sure. I mean, one of the things is that, like, certain people probably don't ever need to go to a depth jump, right? Yeah. Because it's like, you know, you determine, look, if folks are kind of like, hey, I want to progress, you know, we have a lot of folks that once they get confident with stuff, like, oh, I want to do that. Cool. Like, we can progress you to that, but you can do box jumps for the rest of your life and maintain athleticism, right? Again, there's a scale. Like, I'm probably on the extreme side of things. I'm turning 44 this year. And, you know, I'm sprinting, jumping, I can jump on 50-inch boxes and, you know, like all this, and you'd be like, shit, like, this guy's crazy. That's what I like doing. And also I want to be an example for my athletes, and I want to be able to, you know, go play pickup basketball whenever for an hour and a half. For some people, it's like, I don't need to do all that. But man, I do want to be able to, you know, my grandchild comes up and jumps, like, and you got to catch, and that's plyometric. I mean, or should I say that, not plyometric, but that's power training, right? Like, or you trip and you catch yourself. I mean, that's plyometric shit. So they want to have certain capabilities. So, like, let's bring them up to this and let's maintain them there. But no, I mean, I could go into, you guys have read through all the data, like what are the, you know, first thing we lose when we age is power, right? Actually, you know, rotational power is actually probably the biggest one, but nonetheless, power and elasticity, but it can be maintained. Like, you could sprint, you know, I mean, into your 70s, right? Now, I'm not saying that you need to be like a master's, you know, 100-meter sprinter, but there's a progression model, and maybe you stop somewhere here in the middle, right? That's completely up to the client. But I think our responsibility, even if somebody goes and is like, all I want to do is get jacked as hell, right? I'm going to sneak in like 40 to 60 reps of plyo work. And it can be used as a primer that's going to help you with a squat. Like, I mean, you know, there's so many different things that it's beneficial for, and it's never going to take away from stuff, right? I mean, look, if somebody goes like, I want to get crazy condition and do high rocks, but at the same time I want to do, you know, the Olympia, you know, you got to pick one, buddy, right? Like, but the thing is, for most people that we train,
like, I haven't found, folks that come in and go like, Luka, all I want is to be as big and muscular as possible. Usually it's like, look, man, my hips hurt, my back hurts, I want to move better. But yeah, I do want to be stronger. I feel weak and I want to get leaner. Like, it's a mix of different things, right? And our goal is to get them there and understand how to organize training in a way where it doesn't kind of bump heads too much, right? And I think that's where kind of the technicality of understanding periodization and program design and how it all works together makes a lot of sense. But, most people want to have a bit of everything, and usually something stands out. But that's why I think like the R7 model, and that's why I love concurrent training, because I've done it pretty much everything. Like over the last, 31 years of training, I was the guy that like, you tell me the program, I've done it. And not for like weeks, like months and months, tested it out. Like, how did I respond to it? And I think it was very useful too, because if you've done, different types of training, how it impacts you. So it's like now if I'm, training Susie, it's like, man, I've seen people do crazy shit and do German volume training with, Gen Pop clients. It's like, what are you doing, right? Because like that person's not going to be able to walk, So you have to, I think, experience and experiment it yourself so that you better understand it, and just go and zoom out and go like, hey, what does this person really want? Are you projecting your own stuff onto them?
Yeah.
Right? Like I think, this comes back to the awareness piece of coaching.
Sure. And, given that most people do have that quite general goal, and if you were to look through your Instagram, or sure, step foot in your gym for a day, you would see that the training is really quite varied. In terms of the movement, I saw things like landmine push presses and lateral throws, all these types of things. Do you think a big mistake then, if people say somebody doesn't have a coach, they're just trying to stay fit and active themselves, is they fall into looking at training through the lens of, a bodybuilder or a powerlifter, and they become too pigeonholed, and they're not doing this kind of wider variety of things that actually, from a longevity point of view, or something that's even more in line with what their stated goals are, would be more beneficial for them? Do you think that's a problem you have to battle a lot?
Yes, absolutely. Because look, as a coach, that's why you should study a lot of different things and understand it. But you've seen this happen. Like, look, how many times online, I know I've experienced it, where, I don't know, if I post a different exercise and somebody goes like, horrible exercise for hypertrophy. It's like, well, fuck, that's not what I was trying to do with it. But okay, you're right, it is, but it's great for power, right? And again, like, we understand that like it's a lot of different components to help us be fit and healthy, right? Again, you can be strong as hell, but you have zero. Tons of NFL guys, I get like, no internal rotation of the hip. I'm like, this is not going to end well, right? So we're gonna regain that motion, right? Like, hey, we're gonna still keep you strong. We're gonna do all these different things, but you need this, right? As time goes by, like, we know the studies now, like, VO2 max, has been kind of overplayed, but it's true. Like, that again, VO2 max determines longevity. We know the lower body strength and grip and blah blah. So okay, cool. So let's develop all these different things, and over time, even for myself, is like, I love training. I was a 5-day-a-week training guy, like lifting weights, because I loved it. Not maybe because it's the best kind of template for me, right? Well, now I have my first kid coming end of May, and hey, I'm gonna move into 3 days a week. I'm doing more conditioning, and it's like, also like, what do I want? It changes with time, right? Somebody that's loved strength training, and do I need to lift XYZ amount of weight? Now I know that I want to keep my strength level at a certain amount, but I'm changing the piece of the pie basically for myself. And so it's important to understand that, like, what is the piece of the pie for that client? By the way, it's fine to ask, like, hey, these 5 things, power, speed, strength, muscle building, quality movement, can you like organize them in for me in order of importance for you? And people will go like, oh, like, cool. Right? Again, what do? We listen to them. We're just making a piece of pie for what they want to do. And with time, things change. Like, I remember one of our clients has been with us for like 15 years. First lost some weight with Zumba. Started realizing she needs to do strength training because that's going to help her lose more weight. Started strength training. Got very into strength training, and kind of counting macros and MyFitnessPal like 3,000 days straight. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, like maybe now I want to do a high ride, something else, right? It's like there's seasons of this. And so we have to adjust to the season. And I think this is a really powerful thing for, like, when you start coaching a client, I try to look at it like, man, I'm going to be their coach, hopefully, not because they need me, right? But just be like, I do a great job, and I'm going to be a guide through their whole life of how they change, you know, through like, hey, you're in your 20s and you want to be jacked and be strong, but then you get to your 30s, like, you know, maybe I want to move a little bit better, be more athletic again. And right. And it's like, now I want to have more longevity. Yeah. Like, hopefully you keep this person for decades and kind of guide them through the different seasons of their health and fitness journey, right? Because it's going to change. I mean, I know it did for me. You know, things are always changing, and I'm like a hardcore fitness guy, right? And for everybody else, it's the same thing. Like, we have to be good at kind of reading between the lines and discovering what people want, and then giving them that.
As we wrap this up, were there any topics you wanted to go over that we didn't talk about?
Let's see. I mean, I think that, you know, when it comes to training, I would say this. This is very beneficial. Like, I'll share one thing on the coach's side of thing, and then just for people that are fitness enthusiasts, and, you know, start writing out what are the different skill sets that create. It's kind of like Megatron, right? Like, what's the transformer that creates Megatron? Like, different skill sets that build the absolutely elite, you know, Megatron coach. And then just look at those and go, like, and be very honest with yourself to go, hey, you know, how good am I at each of these skill sets? Because just laying it out, a lot of times you'll be like, man, I've really veered to one side of this. You know, and I do think there's a law of diminishing returns. Okay. Like, and again, this is even hard for me to say because I'm such a geek about, you know, training. But when you get to a certain point, it's like you'll continue to get better, but there's laws of diminishing returns. But there's skill sets where 1 + 1 = 3 or 4. So for example, training plus behavior psychology, 1 + 1 = 4, right? Training plus being a good speaker communicator, 1 + 1 = 5, right? So if you are like been obsessed with training, and like now you're at this point where like you're studying hard, and it's like, I'm not saying to stop it. I'm just saying, like, there's a law of diminishing returns. You could build another one of those skill sets and like do this to your coaching. Be on a, you know, hockey stick curve again. And that's exciting. And I think that's, you know, and again, one of them for coaches that have never really done a lot of this, I think, you know, doing content, like, where does content come into play? I'm bringing this up because it gets asked so much, right? Like, I'm a new coach, Luka, what do you think about this? And I think there's kind of 4 stages of creation, you know, whether it's blogs, social media, podcasts, whatever it is, right? For a coach. And I think the first one is essentially like doing it for yourself, like to be a better teacher. Because like, if you have to write a blog post right now about whatever topic, right? What do you have to do? You have to research it. You have to, you know, your own experience, distill it, right? Like, what's the headline? What are the subheadlines? Like, it has to be readable. What are the bullet points? Like, so you actually creating the content is making you better at the thing, because you have to communicate it. Same thing with the video. Shoot a 90-second video on like the best coaching cues for a deadlift, right? You have to get better at communication. So phase 1 is you're doing the content so it makes you better at your craft. Phase 2 is like, speak to your audience. And by the way, I think most coaches don't ever have to leave that phase, right? It's like, who are your clients? Solve problems for your clients. Create useful, valuable content. Not necessarily viral. It doesn't need to be viral. Just like quality stuff that if somebody watches it, they're like, oh man, that helped me. That was useful. As you know, Frank Kern gave me a good tip a long time ago. He was like, Luka, show people that you can help them by actually helping them. I was like, ooh, crazy shit, right? But and so that's to me how content was, right? And then phase 3 is like, do it for the industry. And you know, for me, I do that because I educate a lot of coaches and gym owners. So, and then, you know, phase 4 is kind of like thought leader, you know, and I would always say that the thought leader part of it is like, you got to work a long time to get there. And maybe here's the thing. I'm not saying you should get there. I'm not even saying you should get to part 3. Like, for most coaches, focus on 1 and 2, and you might be there for forever. And that will make you extremely successful, because you could be in part 2 and build your, you know, brick and mortar and online business a lot more than in 3. And I think this is what coaches do, right? Because the ego part. I am creating content to make you guys think I'm smart, but I get no fucking coach, you know, clients. Dude, that's not gonna help, right? So I think that's an important factor on that side of things. And the last thing that I'll say on the kind of like I mean, this is for everybody, right? Not just like the person that's a fitness enthusiast that's training, but I know we're all biased here, but I look at my life and the life of my clients, and I'm like, if you are not like fit, healthy, and able to perform, it will literally drop every other area of your life down. Relationships, man, try being like, I would say tired and always in pain and whatnot, and performing better as a leader at your work or, for your family or anything. I mean, same thing, like this is how you can test it out. Sleep for 3 hours a night for the next 3 nights, right? And tell me how your attitude is. Like, you're a dick, right? Like, but the thing, same thing. When you're unfit, meaning you don't have good strength levels, cardio levels, because again, I'm 44 and people are like, dude, how are you doing this, all this stuff in a day? I'm like, because I have that, like, I have built my body up to be able to do that. So I can go longer, I can be more focused longer. It really is like, this flesh vehicle that we have takes us through life. So it's like, it's the most important thing. Now, I'm not telling you how far you should dial that up. That's up to you. But I do know that anything that you want in life is going to be better if you're fit, healthy, and have a high level of performance, period. Right. And I mean, shit, I think that's probably the best note to finish on, unless you guys have, because I could keep talking about this stuff.
Yeah. How can people go about finding you?
Best way, on Instagram, Luka Hocevar, Hocevar. I got a YouTube channel where it's very, very strong on, stuff for coaches and fitness enthusiasts. I have a podcast called the Vigor Life Podcast, and lukahocevar.com is where I have a lot of courses and workshops that keep growing, which is all for coaches, for education on that side of things. There's more, but those are kind of like the main.
We'll have all the links in the description. I want to thank you for coming out. It's been great. Any final thoughts? Man,
most powerful question you can ask yourself in life: who do I want to become? I keep saying that to everybody. I have it on my screens, on my phones, because who I want to become is an identity question, and again, for anybody listening, I don't care if this is your career as a person, but the person that you want to become does specific things, right? So if that's your frame of how you look at the world, it's the most powerful question you can. I'm a fit dad. I'm a great leader. I'm a person who opens up door. Micro to macro, right? If you keep asking yourself that question, it will lead you, what we said earlier, like the direction is more important than destination. And if you keep asking yourself that, you're going to go in the right direction and you'll be happy about who you become.
Very good.
Very well said.
Thank you. And we're done.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All content you see on this channel and at elitefts.com is created by, take a guess, Elite FTS. If you want to help support the content, head over to elitefts.com and pick up literally anything that you need to be able to get more jacked and strong.